Check, check. All right, well, we'll begin our meeting. Welcome to our Planning Commission meeting. Today is Thursday, May 22nd, and call the meeting to order at 9 a.m. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And can we get verification of legal notice?
Yes, Mr. Chair, all legals have been noticed.
Thank you. We have one consent agenda item, item 4A, to approve the minutes from March 27th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting.
So move for approval?
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? None. Motion passes. And we do have a little bit of time, so we will do public input, and that is of anyone in the public can speak for 3 minutes on any item that is not on today's agenda. So if anybody wishes to speak, you will be given 3 minutes before we begin our 9:05 item. And we'll take a look in the Zoom room to see if there's any hands.
No hands.
No hands in the Zoom room and nobody in the chamber, so we'll just give a couple of minutes. I have a time of 9:02, so we will begin our first item at 9:05. Check, check. And we have a time of 9:05. We will begin with our first timed item, item 6A. Public hearing, consideration of lake bed encroachment permit and variance request for the Disney Boat Rental Facility, PL 25-18, VR 24-01, located at 2200 Lakeshore Boulevard, Lakeport. The APN is 026-031-29. And staff?
Good morning, Chair, Planning Commissioners. My name is Michelle Iris. I'm the Resource Planner for the County of Lake. Be presenting this item, co-presenting this item with Scott Webb to my right here. He's the Water Resources Technician. And today we'll be presenting the lake bed encroachment permit and variance for the Disney Rental Facility project. So this slide contains a site map of the proposed request. The Disney Development Project is located on the west side of Lakeshore Boulevard within the city's jurisdiction. So this one is a little unique to the projects that we typically have seen come to the Planning Commission, in that it is all located within the city of Lakeport's jurisdiction, and also not subject to our zoning code, but it is subject to the shoreline ordinance, which I'll dive into a bit more shortly. So although the planning entitlements and building permits for the Disney Development Project are within the city's jurisdiction and have already been approved, the installation of the 2 floating docks and buoys are within the county's jurisdiction under Chapter 23, which is the shoreline ordinance. Also, to support the development, protect sensitive species, and mitigate environmental concerns, the applicant is requesting a variance from 2 code sections of that ordinance. One being the addition of a second dock, and the other being to exceed the allowable length of 1 dock. This slide shows the proposed project parcel in blue. You can see it's split by Lakeshore Boulevard. The portion to the right on the lakeside is the portion that we'll be discussing today, where the shoreline development is proposed. Across from the site is the Lakeport Unified School District sites, including the elementary school, middle school, and high school. And the surrounding area is developed with a mix of residential and associated dock facilities, as well as other commercial development. Getting into the background of the project, Disney Boat Rentals has been in operation since 1983, is located on the 400 block of Main Street in Lakeport. They are seeking to relocate their offices to the proposed location, and their project includes building a office facility that is shown in the bottom right-hand side, as well as some other entitlements that are listed on the slide. Again, those were all through the city of Lakeport, but just wanted to provide some context. And typically, lake bed encroachment permits are administratively processed through our ordinance. An applicant submits the application with our water resources technician here, and he processes it administratively so long that a categorical exemption can be supported, and that all of the findings can be made to support that request. So typically we don't see those coming to Planning Commission. So as noted, the applicant seeking the lake bed encroachment permit for the 2 floating docks. The slide contains side profiles of those 2 docks. One is a floating customer dock that would be approximately 230 feet long by 8 feet wide, with a 35 wide pop out and dock building where they would store life jackets, kayaks, inner tubes, and other ancillary items. The dock would not be open to the general public, but would be utilized by customers renting the boat facilities. The other dock is a fuel dock that would be approximately 150 feet long by 8 feet wide. It would have a mobile fuel trailer that would remain stationary and parked on a concrete pad while Disney's Boat Rentals is operational, which is typically spring through fall of each year. the use of the dock and fuel trailer would be limited to trained employees only and not open to customers or the general public. The fuel dock would also feature a fuel spill response equipment, nozzle drip control, and fire suppression systems. And when the fuel trailer requires refueling, it would be attached to a pickup truck and moved to the west side of the property away from the shoreline to avoid potential spills near the lake. And in winter months, the mobile trailer tank would be stored at the Disney office on the other side of Lakeshore Boulevard. There would also be a pedestrian crosswalk, and 2 concrete pads would be installed to support those docks. Boat mooring is we'll probably use some terminology you may not be familiar with, so stop me at any time if you have questions. But boat mooring is the process of securing a boat to a specific location using anchors, chains, or ropes, or other devices. The project proposes 10 of those spaces for the boat rentals to be stationed and parked within the water during the operational months. Construction for this component is anticipated to be approximately 2 to 3 weeks, and a marine contractor would be obtained by the applicant for construction of the docks. I'll get into this a little bit more as well, but the work window is limited to October 15th to December 31st. You'll hear me refer to that as the hitch work window to avoid impacts to the Clear Lake hitch, our special status species. And lastly, section 23.8 of the shoreline ordinance defines marinas and harbors as a commercial development with more than one dock for use by the general public. And there are development standards and requirements for marinas that this project does meet, and including a development of a maintenance plan that is included as a draft in the staff report, and the applicant will be finalizing that with our Water Resources Department. As I noted, the applicant seeks 2 variances from the code. One is being for the types and numbers of piers or docks or boat ramps. This slide lists a table that summarizes the regulation. As you can see, the second pier dock shall be for the use of non-boating activities. However, in this case, both of the docks are associated with boat activities. And I should also note that that dock was suggested by our Environmental Resources Department and through the agency review that City of Lakeport did, and then through the CEQA process to separate the customer dock from the fuel dock to maintain safe fueling practices. And then secondly, the code allows for the docks to reach 100 feet measured from the lakeward to 0 Rumsey, and the applicant is proposing to extend the dock by 25 feet, so for a total of 125 feet past that mark. This one was actually suggested, again, through the review process and with water resources technician to avoid or lessen impacts to the toolies. An initial study and mitigative negative declaration, or ISM&D, was prepared by the City of Lakeport as the lead agency for the overall project, was circulated for public review, and then revised and recirculated in November of last year. The main reason for the circulation was because of comments received from our department, Water Resources, as well as California Department of Fish and Wildlife related to impacts to the toolies in Hitch and some of the bio components of the report that they wanted to see revised. So the city revised that and recirculated it in November of last year. And on January 8th of this year, the City of Lakeport approved the overall development project as well as the ISM&D. We did make sure throughout that process, we worked very closely with the City of Lakeport to ensure that all of our concerns were addressed related to the components within the county's jurisdiction, being that shoreline development of the docks. And under CEQA, we are a responsible agency. So we're not the lead agency having the sole main jurisdiction over the overall project, but we have follow-up entitlements, that being the encroachment permits and now the variance, that makes us a responsible agency. So a responsible agency under CEQA is required to certify that the document is sufficient in mitigating and analyzing impacts associated with their jurisdiction, and also are required to adopt the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Report, MMRP. So I have included that in the attachments, and because we work so closely with the city, there are no proposed changes to that MMRP, but it is attached for your consideration. So one aspect of interest, you've heard me note this a couple of times, is impacts to the Tules and the Clear Lake Hitch. So the concrete pads, pylons, and acres would result in the removal of approximately 508 square feet of riparian habitat and 3 square feet of aquatic habitat, including tules. If you're not familiar, tules are a wetland plant with important ecological and cultural significance to Clear Lake, and they also act as a filter for stormwater runoff. Clear Lake Hitch are endemic species to Clear Lake, meaning that they only are live here in Clear Lake. And they also are listed as threatened by the state and being proposed for listing by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife as well. As I mentioned, these concerns were raised by Water Resources as well as Community Development, Environmental Health, and California Fish and Wildlife during the draft initial study. And the noted entities worked with the City of Lakeport to redesign aspects of the project, including extending that dock and adding the second dock to address those impacts. And the project also includes a revegetation plan, focusing on removing invasive species and replanting tules and other native vegetation along the shoreline at a ratio of 3:1, resulting in approximately 1,500 square feet and 9 square feet of tules. And lastly, the hitch work window has been established by California Fish and Wildlife in an effort to protect the hitch in their rearing season of their life cycle. So all proposed construction on the waterfront and shoreline would be limited to that October through December timeline. So as previously noted, the project is not subject to the county's zoning code in Chapter 21, but it is subject to Chapter 23, we refer to as the Shoreline Ordinance. The project is consistent with all applicable requirements of the Shoreline Ordinance and development of marinas. The Shoreline Ordinance lists 9 findings for approval. They're all listed within the staff report. For brevity, I tried to summarize them on the slide here. They are all related to not harming water quality, the lake, fish and habitat, the natural beauty of the area, wetlands, archaeological resources, and then also of importance is ensuring that navigation and health and safety of the lake and folks using the lake is maintained. And so the project meets all of those findings, specifically through working with all of those noted departments and redesigning the project so that it is supporting these findings and mitigating impacts to sensitive species and water quality of local and state concern. Lastly, I just wanted to note that a part of the initial study process through the City of Clear Lake, they did initiate AB 52 consultation for tribal input, and they met with Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians as well as Scott Valley Pomo Indians, and it resulted in a monitoring, construction monitoring agreement with Scotts Valley, so that's included as a mitigation as well and a condition of approval. So based on our analysis, the CDD department as well as Water Resources Department have determined that all required findings can be made, and we recommend that the Planning Commission adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program as well as approving the variance from the two sections noted from the shoreline ordinance, as well as approving the lake bed encroachment permit for the Disney boat rental facility project. And happy to answer any questions you may have. The applicants are also here in the chambers.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Back to the Zoom.
Do the applicants have anything prepared for us, or yeah, if you guys would like to come up? And please state your first and last name for the record.
Yes, hi. My name is Brandon Disney. I'm the president of our company. President is too formal a term, I think, for us. We're a very small company that started in 1983, as Michelle said, by my dad, Roy, behind me, mom, Charlotte. I also have my brother and business partner, Connor, here with me. What I would like to go over is just a little bit about our company history and why we're doing this project at all. As Michelle mentioned, the part that's in the county's jurisdiction is just the variance for the two docks, but being that this is a new project that does bring some excitement with it, I would just take a second to go over the whole project. And what that is things have been going great since the 80s. We're really enjoying showcasing Lake County and Lakeport and growing as a company. My brother and I left, went to college, came back to run the company, and there are some limitations with where we are now. We're located just on Main Street in Lakeport, which means every time that a customer comes, we have to hook up the boat with a truck, we have to bring it down to the lake, launch the boat. When the boat's done, we have to bring it back. There's a little bit of inefficiencies there, a lot of inefficiencies there. When we saw this property for sale right on the water, right here in Lakeport, it seemed like a great opportunity to jump at. We bought the property in 2021, and we've spent, feels like every waking minute planning this project from then till now. Really happy that we have the approvals from the city of Lakeport, and now just seeking your approvals. A couple things that I'd like to point out. One is the care that we have put into the design of this project, where we have our building located on the west side of Lakeshore. We placed it specifically so we didn't have to remove a single oak tree. I don't know if you've driven past that property, but there are huge, beautiful trees in that area. Where we're located now is a parking lot, and we have no shade. And during these 100+ degree days, shade would be a welcomed reprieve. So we really wanted to make sure we maintained the oak trees there. We also, when we purchased the property, it was really overgrown. You couldn't even see the lake when you drive past, so we're really excited to just give that property the proper maintenance that it deserves by trimming up the trees, caring for the wildlife and the whole ecology in that area. I won't go too far into it. Michelle has done a great job with presenting our project and the variance requests here. But I will just leave one more thing, which is that we as a company are just really excited to grow. And these two variance requests were not something that we were seeking initially. We wanted to take our current permitted floating dock and just bring it over. It was a efficient way to do it. It was an inexpensive way to do it. Through discussions with environmental health at the county and water resources, we were requested to have the dock go out further, which now means we're in this variance territory. We were also asked to have a second dock for fueling, to keep fueling separate from customers. Again, brings us to this variance territory. So our preference, it was cheaper that way to just float over what we have currently, but this puts us in this situation where we're seeking your approval. So we're here, happy to answer any questions from the commission, from the public. I can answer questions now or take my seat, and you can ask them at any time.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, you guys can ask now.
Yeah, thank you. This looks like a really exciting project. I just have a couple questions. First of all, a member of the public has suggested placing buoys. You know, when you were extending a dock out farther into the lake, I'm imagining people not seeing it, and they've got water on their glasses, and I'm just thinking of myself. Uh, Is that something you'd agree to, is putting out buoys?
Yeah, so we currently have proposed 3 buoys, one 5-mile-an-hour zone buoy, and then 2 on each corner of the property, buoys with solar lights on it to flash at night. Additionally, our dock does have solar lights on it, so that will be visible. We're more than happy to add more buoys. Adding more buoys adds more costs, adds more annual fees to the county, but it's not something we're opposed to. Where we operate now at Library Park, I think in the entire width going from First Street to Fifth Street, there's only 3 5-mile-an-hour zone buoys, potentially 4. There are red and green buoys for a boat ramp. So there are, a lot of buoys in that area, but as far as 5-mile-an-hour zone specific buoys, there's only a couple. We're proposing for this only 700 or so feet of shoreline, 3 buoys already. And instead of regulatory orange buoys on the corners, we could make those 5-mile-an-hour zone buoys. But on the plans currently there are 3, and we would be okay if you guys required more.
That sounds good to me. My only other question was, maybe it's in here somewhere, but I missed it. What will the depth of the water be at the end of the dock when the lake level is at 0 Rumsey? Do you happen to know that?
I don't know it off the top of my head. I believe your water resource technician here would know.
Yeah, hi, Scott Webb. And the depth at the end of the customer dock would be about -3.5 Rumsey. So it's pretty shallow all the way out in that area.
So when the lake is at 0, it would be about 3.5 feet deep. Now, the reason that is something that still works for us is that we have opted to operate all outboard motors on our boats. That provides several things. One is they're quiet, they're fuel efficient, and the propellers can go up quite a ways, so you don't have that deep draft, which was really crucial to us, especially during drought years.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
I did have a question regarding the anchoring devices that will be used to anchor the floating docks. What are those going to look like?
Good question. We've got currently, which is permitted through the county, they are cement or concrete anchors encased in plastic. They're about 2 or 3 feet long by another foot or so wide. They weigh about 200 or 300 pounds apiece, and they're connected to cable winches on the dock. So we would keep that same system in place for the dock anchoring at this new proposed parcel. The thing that we would be adding that's new is the mooring buoy anchors, and that we're also working with Scott Webb, the water resources technician, on the proper way to do those. He's recommending a midline float, which just means that the cable or the chain, if that boat were to sway, it won't dredge or stir up the lake bed. That float will keep it off of the lake bed. I don't know if that directly addressed your question or not, but
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just curious what it was going to look like underneath. Yeah, I was thinking that's what you guys were going to use, but just wanted to make sure.
of course.
My question was your question.
If there's no other questions, I'll take my seat, but I'm more than happy to come up and answer anything else.
All right. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Any other questions for staff before I open up public input? No questions? All right. So we'll take, I'll open up public input. Anyone wishing to speak on the project with concerns or anything can have 3 minutes. Please state your first and last name for the record.
Good morning. Thanks to the Planning Commission for the opportunity to speak on this important matter. My name is Dr. Eric Wojcik. I live in Lakeport, just down the street. A summary of my background is going to be pedantic, but I've worked in over 45 countries for 45 years on energy development. I have 3 degrees, and I'm an established energy professional and economist. The matters I want to speak on are the overall concerns, lack of an adequate negative deck, and why the Lake County proposed conditions for approval of variance are incomplete. Overall concerns. First, the most obvious is the lack of traffic impact analysis and its implications with the proposed Disney project, as well as the expected traffic increase at this location. A confluence of of the Lake County Public Schools and Clear Lake. And oh, by the way, I apologize, I have copies of this, which I was intending to share with
Do you have them?
the board, yeah, the Planning Commission. So, thank you. I will be abbreviated, so I won't go through every one of these comments, but related specific questions are why the negative deck or Disney report fails to address the magnitude of the increased vehicle traffic, including traffic use to and from public watercraft launch ramps. There'll be no launch ramps there, so there'll still be traffic to, I assume, the public boat ramps, which I think Disney's going to use. There's no explanation of that. The immediate traffic impact on Lakeshore Boulevard and Lakeport schools, what is that? What is the amount of increased water vehicle traffic? How many boats and jet skis are expected? What is the immediate air quality impact on Lakeshore Boulevard and Lakeport schools? What is the comparison of baseline air emissions, which is not addressed in the negative deck? They're just blanks in those spaces for that information. What's the impact of the 200-foot long dock and 120-foot fueling facility on car traffic? What are the water impacts, biological impacts, and air quality impacts? These are not discussed in detail. The report, which is used for the negative deck, is quite incomplete, and I have a lot of experience in that. At UC Davis, I studied environmental impact analysis, and I used it through most of my career. How to mitigate the proposed fuel tank and concrete pad impacts over the sewer line. How to avoid cutting down at least 10 of 44 oak trees on the site to locate the office. At least according to the plan, I disagree with the gentleman who spoke earlier, Mr. Disney.
And that is your 3 minutes, sir. If you would like to wrap up your comment. Because applicants they do not get timed, sir. If you'd like to speak, you can speak in a second while I let Mr. Eric Charles finish his comment. So if you'd like to wrap it up,
Okay.
I'll let you finish your statement, sir.
Well, you have the written version of it. I'm going to comment on the third matter, which is conditions for approval of variance are incomplete for at least these reasons. Traffic impacts not addressed, air quality impacts not addressed, safety, sound, and distraction impacts not addressed that will impact school students. This seems very important. Growth in boat rental traffic, especially jet ski traffic on the lake, not addressed. Dock use, mooring, and marine vehicle not addressed. And one other point, you asked the question, Mr. Chairman, about buoys, I believe, and, oh, no, I'm sorry, Ms. Field, you did. What was not mentioned is that there are 10 mooring buoys that are planned for, and those are, I think, the safety issue. It's not the buoys that you would light to define the perimeter of the facility. If you have any questions, be pleased to answer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, sir.
Can I make a comment?
We'll do it. Anybody else wish to speak on this item? Please come up to the podium and state your first and last name. And you will have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Gary Reeson. I've attended all the previous meetings, which discussions, I'm talking about, how can I call it, anyway. What got me into this initially was the schools. Both my daughters were teachers. One was a vice principal down at Lower Lake. And the nearest to the schools, but what we're talking about now is the open space area. And chapter 23, 23.1, to improve, protect the waterbed and the water around Clear Lake. I'm not good at this. This area has been, by the Audubon Society, about the grebe for their nesting areas. Going through right now with the fish. The concrete pads after the easement. It all goes down to the lake. How are they going to support these pads? Are they going to be cement all the way down to the ground? Trying to level it out. As I understand it, the fuel trailer is to be stored across the street on the west side, and then this concrete pad is big enough where they can, I'm going to use the word parallel park, it'll come across, have to come back and forth. And today's the first day I've heard about the, for spillage. The tank will be on a dangerous turn and underneath high tension wires. They're going to have some kind of a 40-foot or more hose to get to the boats to be refueled, which allows for spillage. I just am concerned about that area. The nesting area, like I said, for the grebes, I'm out there right now seeing the fish. It's just that kind of spawning time and nesting, and it's going to be so disrupted. How can everybody go through and say nothing's going to happen when there's going to be so many boats, so many people in an area that doesn't need to be, it's going to be disrupted. Like I said, I apologize. This is new to me. But we're going to have I'm sure there's going to be other boats coming to the fueling dock to refuel, so which is going to increase the number of boats in the area. And the 5-mile-an-hour buoys, I've been around these things, they don't seem to, a lot of boaters and especially skiers don't pay attention to the 5-mile-an-hour zone. Okay.
You can wrap up your comments, sir, if you would like.
It's just, I'll make one comment. Okay, for years, as was stated, they've been launching the boats down on First Street. For years, Willow Point was for sale, which was right next to their launching area. That could have been utilized, boat storage right there, their launch right there, and they could have maybe set up some campsites for people that came from out of town that wanted to rent boats and utilize it.
Thank you for your comment.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners.
Morning.
Margot Kambara. I have an observation, a few suggestions, and a few questions. First, sometimes the request for a response from agencies includes environmental groups. I noticed for this project, environmental groups were not included. And for something that affects Clear Lake, the gem of the county, I think that's an oversight. Groups such as, foremost, the Blue Ribbon Committee for Clear Lake, they should have been included or asked to submit response. Groups such as Redbud Audubon Society and the Sierra Club should also have been asked to please weigh in. I think that would have been very helpful to let the public know that the environmental aspects of this project have been more thoroughly vetted. I would also like to bring to your attention that as a condition of use or approval, it's great to have a revegetation plan, but what is the follow-up plan on that? Which agency is going to be checking to see that the revegetation plan is indeed effective? It's nice to have a plan on paper, but who is going to make sure that the habitat that has been taken out is going to truly be mitigated for? And so in the future, I would suggest that the request for response form include environmental, especially those public environmental groups. And it was terrific that the tribes were notified for this, but I believe it was primarily for the cultural resources, not necessarily the environmental impacts. So I would also suggest that the tribals, environmental, the EPA agencies associated under the tribes also be included on the request for response forms. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have any hands in the Zoom room?
I have to ask Sam that. It's not showing.
No hands in the Zoom room? All right, I'm gonna do one last check here in the chambers if anybody wishes to speak before we close public input. Seeing none in the Zoom room and none in the chambers, we will close public input and bring it back to the commission for further questions or action.
Just a couple of clarifications. It was mentioned about first gentleman who spoke on his written information that oak trees were going to be impacted, and so just a clarification on that. It says he wrote on his cutting down 10 oak trees for the office, and you mentioned that there were going to be no oak trees involved.
Yeah, if I may,
State your first and last name for the record one more time.
Brandon Disney. I don't know where that figure came from the gentleman from the public, but we specifically have placed everything to not remove any trees. So I don't know where that came from, but I can show you a map on where the building will be placed, but no trees will be removed.
Okay. And then there's a number of other bullet points that he has on his concerns, and I wondered, have some of these already been addressed by the Lakeport approval?
I can clarify. That is correct. All of the impacts associated with the main development project are in the city's jurisdiction and were deemed to be less than significant with those mitigations noted in the MMRP. So yes, that's correct. And I also have a couple other clarifications,
Thank you.
if I may.
Good.
Okay.
I would like you to proceed with
Okay,
further
thank you.
clarification of exactly what we are reviewing today. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, it is a little bit different than what we normally see. So before the commission today is specifically approval of the MMRP, that is the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, has mitigation measures related to air quality, biological resources, including bird nesting surveys. That was another thing I wanted to clarify. Geological impacts, as well as hazards in tribal cultural resources. So that is one action. The next action is consideration of approving the lakebed encroachment permit, because under the ordinance, it delegates authority to the Planning Commission to actually approve that permit as well when an initial study is required for a project or when a variance is requested. So in this case, we meet both of those criteria, so the commission would be approving or denying that permit. And thirdly, it is the request for variance from those two code sections related to the permit. So 3 actions for the commission.
So just for clarity, when it was mentioned about the environment right around on the lake shore, was that reviewed by the city of Lakeport?
Yes, the city of Lakeport had a comprehensive initial study that included the shoreline development as well, which is why we can support it as a responsible agency.
So to answer the question, is there going to be further review that whatever mitigation was done along the lakeshore has been completed and correctly or implemented?
Yes, I understand what you're asking now. The revegetation plan.
Thank you.
Yes, the revegetation plan is included in the initial study attachments. It includes, I have it open in front of me, we share the same, generally with revegetation plans, the same concerns as Ms. Kambaro brought up. You definitely want an enforceable and measurable plan as such. So this plan provides restoration goals and objectives. It also has success criteria and requires annual monitoring reports to be submitted to the county as well as CDFW, California Fish and Wildlife. And it mentions, using a qualified biologist, and it goes on. It's about 17 pages long and does include methods for implementation and monitoring. And then one other thing I'd like to note is that when the county sent out the RFR, so the city did 2 rounds of RFRs, request for review, as a part of their process. And then when the variance and lake bed permit came to us, we also sent out a request for agency review. And we did include the Audubon Society, and I had communicated directly with them about this project. So they were included, although they're not an agency. They are, an important environmental community member. And I think that's all I had. Besides that, I know that the employees would be the only ones using the fuel dock, so there wouldn't be other public boats coming up. But maybe the applicant can speak to that more as well if the commission wishes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. That answered several of my questions. A couple of the members of the public who spoke brought up really good issues. I was very concerned about traffic as well, but as I understand, that's not our jurisdiction. We're just looking at the variance. In an ideal world, I think about planning and how it should happen, and I think, gosh, where would be the best place for a boat rental facility? And it would be right next to the park in the city where people can dine and then go out and watch the boats and whatever. Come in on their boat and have dinner, whatever. That's not the way the world works, unfortunately. But I think it's a really good point, and we should think about that as a community. The other thing, while I was reading all of this material yesterday, I drove by the property. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful, and I'm very glad to hear that no oak trees are going to be removed. Back to my idealistic world, wouldn't it be cool if we could trade that property for that area at the north end of the city park, where we could have boat rentals there and then have the park next to the school? If you look at the map of the school, and I remember because my kids went there, it's mostly paved where those poor kids play. Wouldn't it be cool to have that part of the kids' playground? But that's not the way we do things, unfortunately. So we're limited by what we can decide here in this room. So anyway, I just had to say that. I wanted to know about public fueling. Is that correct, that there will not be public fueling there?
Correct. It'll just be our trained employees. We won't allow public boats to approach our private fueling dock.
Okay.
We will not sell gas to the public. It'll be completely limited to our rental fleet.
Okay, great, thank you. The first gentleman talked about the buoys, and my concern about buoys that I brought up earlier was answered by looking at a map that you might not have access to. My concern was that both those moorings and the dock could be hit by boats or jet skis going too fast. The location of the buoys that are proposed is outside, so that's resolved. That also answers my question about grebe nesting. As I understand it, this is actually going to improve the prospects for the grebes because it's going to slow down traffic in that area. And that's all in answer to Margot's concern. I think she has a point, but it's answered by the fact that all of these materials are made public 72 hours before every meeting. So every group there is has access to them. I have no other concerns. I'm ready to make a motion if.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready.
As a responsible agency under CEQA, I move that the Planning Commission adopt the mitigation monitoring reporting program for the initial study adopted by the City of Lakeport's Planning Commission for the Disney Boat Rental Project based on the findings in the staff report dated May 22nd, 2025. I move that the Planning Commission, do we need to vote separately?
Yes.
I second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes with,
Can we check the Zoom room? Because Sam has got that under control.
sure. For more comments? We already closed public input. Yeah. Mhm. All right, so there was a motion and a second, and the vote passes. And then,
I move that the Planning Commission approve the variance request from sections 23.6.3E2 and 23.6.5A of the county shoreline ordinance for the Disney Boat Rental Facility Project located at 2200 Shoreline Boulevard, Lakeport, APN 026033129, based on the findings in the staff report dated May 22nd, 2025, and subject to the conditions in attachment 3.
Second.
got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I move that the Planning Commission approve the lakebed encroachment permit for Disney Boat Rental Facility Project located at 2200 Lakeshore Boulevard, Lakeport, APN 026033129, based on the findings in the staff report dated May 22nd, 2025, and subject to the conditions in attachment 3.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. And motion passes. The applicant or any interested person is reminded that the Lake County Municipal Code, Chapter 23, Shoreline Ordinance, provides for a 7-calendar-day appeal period. If there is a disagreement with the Planning Commission, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fee must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th day following the Planning Commission's decision on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, and moving on to our second item, 6B, our 920, consideration of a proposed major use permit, PL 25-684, UP 23-09, for a commercial cannabis cultivation for up to 5.69 acres, 247,800 square feet. And draft. It will take a, okay, we'll take a minute break to let people exit the room. All right, I'm just gonna take a 5-minute break before our next item. So it is 9:52. We'll be back at 9:57. Check, check. Welcome back, everyone. We just got a couple more green sheets, so I'm gonna do another 5-minute break. We'll be back at 10:02. Thanks.
gotta have it on my, be able to have it on my laptop.
Check.
Yeah.
Or no, actually.
All right,
that's
and welcome back. I do have a time of 10:02, and we will begin our item 6B, our 9:20 a.m. public hearing, consideration of a proposed major use permit, PL 25-68, for UP 23-09, for a commercial cannabis cultivation for up to 5.69 acres, or 247,800 square feet, and draft initial study, mitigated negative declaration, IS 23-29, Poverty Flats Ranch, Kurt and Bobby Barthel. Location is 10535 High Valley Road, Clear Lake Oaks. The APN is 006-004-22. And we have staff.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Max Stockton. I am an Assistant Planner 2 for Community Development Department, here to present to you the project mentioned, Poverty Flats Ranch, applicants Kurt and Bobby Barthel. And I wanted to make note that the applicants and consultant are present in the chambers and are prepared to answer any questions you may have. As mentioned, the permit request is for the project proposed 5A Type 3 and 3A Type 2 commercial cannabis licenses, totaling 5.69 acres, which equals 247,800 square feet of outdoor canopy area, also to include one A Type 13 self-distribution license. The property is a total acreage of approximately 196.7 acres. As can be seen from the vicinity map, most of the property around the parcel is undeveloped, with farmland to the south, and to the west is an approved commercial cannabis farm, and the rest is undeveloped. Project site is approximately 2.5 miles from the nearest community growth boundaries of Lucerne to the west and Clear Lake Oaks to the southeast. As can be seen by the zoning maps, this property is rural lands. The full zoning is RLWWSC, which identifies rural lands, waterway, scenic combining district. In the left-hand corner there, you can see a rough outline of two yellow lines, which identify the scenic combining designation around High Valley Road. And the designations of each yellow line are to represent a 550-foot buffer to either side of High Valley Road for scenic views. And the blue box represents the project area that is approximately 1,000 feet away from the edge of the road. And this is within the Shoreline Community Planning Area and Supervised Rural District 3. For the site description, the site is located approximately 5.5 miles away from Highway 20. The project parcel is a variable topography with a series of ridge lines and valleys. And the proposed project locations are located in areas that range between 0 and 30% slope. The project scope, again, to reiterate, is proposed 5.69 acres of outdoor canopy, and the proposed location offers a variety of opportunities for this applicant. which have been proposed as 8,700 square feet of immature plant area, 2,400 square feet of a proposed processing building that will include an ADA restroom. The fires, Mendocino Complex fire, damaged the septic and leach field for this project, and so they proposed repairs or redevelopment of that septic and leach field to meet the needs of this project and the demand of an ADA restroom. The property is surrounded by fence, and the canopy areas will be also surrounded by their own individual fences at 6 feet in height. Water storage for irrigation will be roughly 79,000 gallons, or up to 79,000 gallons, and a minimum of 12,500 gallons are to be designated for fire suppression in accordance with the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA. Storage for fertilizers, agricultural chemicals, and hand tools will be on site. Electricity is proposed to be both ground-mounted solar and roof-mounted solar once the processing building is constructed, with a backup generator for emergency purposes. The project also proposes 9 parking spaces to include an ADA parking space, and 3 portable restroom facilities are to service employees prior to construction of the new processing facility. And there will also be trash enclosures, compost piles, soil piles located within each fence cultivation area. Existing uses on the property are to include, or currently include, a development with interior access roads, an existing security gate, perimeter fencing, a groundwater well with permitted pump house, 2 permitted shipping containers, 2 permitted tool sheds, an old hunting cabin, 8 permitted water tanks. Further analysis, project analysis on this project included evaluation of the Lake County General Plan, Shoreline Community Area Plan, the Lake County Zoning Ordinance, and state regulations. And the general plan goal and policies reviewed include Chapter 3, which is land use, Chapter 7, health and safety, and Chapter 11, water resources. Policies reviewed include no conflicting policies within the general plan and no specific policies addressing commercial cannabis cultivation in the general plan. The project is an allowable use with major use permit in the RL zone properties per Article 27.11. Use is generally permitted, and approximately 1,000 feet from High Valley Road as to not impact the scenic combining district. As can be seen on this map, these are going to be from the Shoreline Communities Area Plan. And this is a map designating the scenic routes. And High Valley Road is one of those routes indicated by the green line shortly northeast of the lake. This one here. Let's see. I apologize, I skipped a slide here. This was mentioned for Article 27.11. Use is generally permitted, and this identifies the different articles reviewed. per the zoning ordinance. Areas identified within the initial study for mitigated efforts include aesthetics, air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soils, hazards and hazardous materials, hydrology and water quality, noise, transportation, tribal cultural resources, utilities, and wildfire. The project analysis includes a mitigated negative declaration, is the proposed CEQA environmental determination for the project. All identifying impacts can be reduced to less than significant with mitigations. Public comment period occurred January 31st, 2023 to March 2nd, 2023, and that was for the initial study, mitigated negative declaration. The mitigations are outlined in staff reports, attachment 2, draft conditions of approval, and attachment 3 for draft initial study, mitigated negative declaration. The Elam tribe contacted former staff involved in this project via telephone, and staff coordinated a meeting between the two parties. An agreement was not executed between the applicant and the tribe, so staff concluded consultation that same day. Staff has included 2 tribal cultural resource mitigation measures regarding tribal sensitivity training and inadvertent discoveries. Yes.
Excuse me, point of order. The slides aren't being advanced in Zoom. Thank you.
Can we take a look at the Zoom, Sam?
Yeah, they weren't earlier and we corrected it, but it would be good to confirm.
Okay.
If that's still.
Yeah, we'll check. Thank you for letting us know.
This is the Zoom right. We
Bear
can,
with us while
we
we
can go ahead and
go
close
through
it,
these
and then
technical difficulties.
I'll go ahead and open it back up, Sam.
I think Sam's gonna come over here and take a quick look at your computer.
Okay, are you showing it on your computer? There we go. Okay, so you're not sharing it on the screen. I'm gonna put it down.
Thank you.
All right, just, then we're gonna put a camera on the screen, as we couldn't get the screen shared on the computer, so. Whoever noticed that glitch, I guess comment and see if you guys can see the new camera that we have set up pointing at the monitor. All right, staff, if you guys wanna continue.
Yes, Commissioner.
All right, it appears that we have some more technical difficulties. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at
Time to read this.
10:22.
Yeah, fortunately, I don't have to try to figure this out. Yes, ma'am.
You guys are organic this year, right, with that East Finley property? Oh,
The pears?
yeah.
We've been organic for a long time.
Oh, I thought Brock said he just got organic this year.
No, Danny leases that from us.
Oh, he leases it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, he's been organic ever
Check, check. All right, welcome back, everyone. We will continue with our meeting where we left off before we had some technical difficulties, but it looks like everything should be up and running. So, staff?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. To proceed, the projected water use for the cultivation operation is 11.2 acre feet annually, or 3,650,000 gallons per year. A drought management plan is included with the hydrology report in attachment 5 to staff's report outlining water conservation methods during a declared drought emergency. The project property is accessible via High Valley Road, a county-maintained road. Approximately 0.42 miles of High Valley Road extends into federal lands. The applicant, Kurt Barthel, has signed an indemnification agreement for transportation of commercial cannabis across federal land. Following the Mendocino Complex fire, a grading permit was submitted for clearing and maintenance of the existing fire break, along with improvements to the access road to meet Public Resource Code 4290 and 4291 standards. The grading permit GR 22-12 was issued, and the inspection confirmed that the grading was conducted in compliance with the grading ordinance. Within 1 mile of the proposed project, there are 0 pending projects. Within 3 miles of the project, there are 2 pending projects and 2 approved projects. Staff would like to recommend the adoption of mitigated negative declaration initial study IS 2329 for use permit PL-25-68 with findings found in the staff report. Staff would also like to recommend the approval of use permit PL-25-68 for UP 2309 with the proposed conditions of approval and with the findings found in the staff report. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the staff report?
I have one. I don't know if this is the right time, but you, at one point you mentioned that there were already existing 8 water tanks, 4,500 gallons each, and then a proposal of 26 more tanks. Is that? I thought I turned it on. Sorry, turned it off. So are these 34 tanks is that the total, or is it just 26? Or is it the cumulative? How many are there going to be
Correct.
proposed?
Yeah, there will be an accumulation of the water necessary to support the project.
Right.
And so that would be the total number.
So it'd be
of
36.
tanks being 36 approximately. Yes.
Just want clarification on that. Thank you. That's what I need for now. Thanks.
Yes.
Any more questions?
Yes. And can we come back and ask staff questions after
course.
as well? Okay, so I do have a question. I was missing some information on looking at page 1 of, I'm sorry. At page 1 of the property, or the project plan,
The property management plan, maybe?
yeah, the property management plan, thank you. On page 1, of course, after the table of contents, under 2.0, property location and project description, the second paragraph seems to be missing information about the Schindler Creek. And so I guess I'm wondering if staff can speak a little bit more to that, and perhaps if you have a moment to look at that, what's missing? Because the paragraph starts with sea level, period.
Yeah.
There are multiple Class 2 water courses.
Yeah, the property management plan was prepared by the applicant. This section is an overview of the project site description. It looks like maybe there was an incomplete sentence there. So the paragraph would start at there are multiple Class 3 water courses, and we could also have maybe the applicant or their consultant speak to that more.
Okay, fabulous, thank you. That's all I have for now.
Seeing as there are no more questions, would the applicants like to speak? All right. And if you guys could have one representative give a speech, and then if there's any questions, then you guys can be called.
I have, so I can read the applicant statement then, because I was going to have the applicant read a statement. He can also do that during public comment. It's less than 3 minutes.
Yeah, he could do
And then
that
I
as
have
well.
my colleague here who we're the North Point are the agent. My name's Angie Dodd. I'm with North Point. My colleague here, we're the agents. He's going to speak to High Valley Road. It's more of his expertise than mine, so he's prepared for that.
Okay, you can proceed. Yeah.
Okay. But I will be doing most of the talking, and hopefully not too fast. Just a couple of, good morning, thank you, Commission. I wanted to say thank you to staff. They've worked really hard on this project. It's been a few years coming, and we've worked together to develop a project that meets all the requirements. I just wanted to make a couple of clarifications. For that line in the property management plan, I was just looking at it, and what looks like happened is you have, the line got moved. So you have in the first or second sentence, it says elevations ranging from 1850 to 2730 above mean poverty flats. Looks like the line just got relocated somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So it should have, the sea level should have been up in that. I don't know what happened. It just got missed. Sorry about that. Another clarification, processing will not be trimming. It's just curing and drying on site. Even though the minimum fire requirement is 12,500 to meet the rural fire requirements, they are proposing 15,000. I also wanted to point out that CEQA public comment was also January 9th to February 7th of this year. And I also wanted to point out that there will be 0 trees removed on this project, and that the applicants just planted 75 trees. The property's still recovering from the fire a few years ago. Oops. I just closed my Word document. Give me a sec. And then I'm skimming through notes because I have clarifications. I'm trying not to repeat what Max has already said. I just had some stuff in here just in case. I wanted to point something out about the cultivation areas that are identified. The application is for 5.69 acres of cultivation area and that same amount of canopy. Those cultivation areas were identified by the applicant. They've owned the property for over 50 years, and they identified the most appropriate sites based on slope and minimal vegetation removal. growing 5.69 acres of canopy in 5.69 acres is pretty much impossible. It's likely going to be more like 4 acres. You usually see 70% with aisle space. We just wanted to have the applicant to have flexibility with amount and see what they can actually fit in the space that they have. But our analyses are based on that higher amount because I like to be conservative to make sure things work for conservative high numbers. In terms of coordination with the tribe, the applicants did meet with and coordinate with Clifford Moda. He's the tribal preservation liaison for the Elam. Hopefully I pronounced that right, Indian colony. They're conditioned, sorry, I'm shaking. They're conditioned to have a cultural sensitivity training. And so they've reached out to Clifford and he's agreed to provide them with that cultural resource training on site before any ground moving activities. So and their applicants amenable to doing that. And there were comments on the project that came in the last few days. This project has been pretty thoroughly analyzed. There's been a lot of time spent invested in this project. A detailed I should probably give a little bit background on myself. I prepared the hydrology report. I have over 30 years experience in water resources engineering. I have a PhD in water resources engineering with an emphasis on surface and groundwater modeling. And I've been practicing and teaching for over 30 years in this field. And you'll probably see some of my reports from North Point over time, and I've kind of added to them over time as I've heard your comments. I try to address those preemptively in my hydrology reports. But in this case, the demand estimate is very conservative. It's based on a 180-day cultivation season. We're seeing more in Lake County for outdoor, about 120 to 150. And then it's based on the whole 5.69 acres. And then my demand estimates aren't based on a per plant estimate. It's based on a square foot of canopy estimate to avoid that conversation about how many plants per acre. And then usually in more temperate climates like Humboldt County, you see about 10 gallons per square foot per plant. In Lake County, I'm usually about 14 to 15, so it's not as temperate as Humboldt County.
Is
Sorry,
that
square foot.
Is that per day?
I
assume
per
it
day.
is, yeah.
Yeah, over the cultivation season. I've spoken with cultivators in Lake County, and it's within the range that they're seeing when they monitor their own crops. So I feel pretty confident with the demand numbers. And with that, the other thing I've done is estimated recharge based on there's this project well and then the nearby well with the nearby cannabis project. They're both I base it on topography and their screened elevations. They're screened in a similar interval, and that's how I determine the recharge area. So using both projects, a conservative estimate of water for both projects, and estimating recharge using the driest year on record. The recharge is about 31 acre feet per year, and the demand of these two projects is about 16 acre feet per year. So there appears to be sufficient recharge. Come on. The other thing I did, which isn't in the report, which I've included in my reports after this one was done in 2023, is I try to estimate the radius of influence. The radius of influence is the distance from the well where the drawdown is negligible. So for this well, it's about 350 feet. The closest well, which is over at High Valley Oaks, the adjacent ranch, our cannabis project, is 2,500 feet away. I also interviewed the owner-operator of High Valley Oaks. They've been irrigating a similar size cannabis project for 5 years now and have had sufficient water the entire time. It's pretty robust, and my interviews basically confirm the conclusions in my hydrology report. So basically, since there's sufficient groundwater supply to meet the annual recharge, to meet the project's demand during dry years, average and dry years, the project is situated in an area of extremely low population and well densities. There's little impact to surrounding wells, and with the implementation of water monitoring, reporting, and conservation measures and drought management practices, I was able to conclude that the project would not have a cumulative impact on the surrounding area. And the monitoring and reporting is a condition of approval, so it's a requirement of the project. There were comments regarding water quality. The project was designed to meet all the local and state requirements for setbacks from streams. The state requires 50 from a class 3. This is designed 100 feet from a class 3. In addition, this project must comply with the Water Board's Cannabis General Permit, General Order holding the design and operation subject to water quality protection requirements, which includes annual inspections and reporting. There is a culvert on site. It's an existing culvert that's been there for a while. State licensing requires coordination and approval by the Department of Fish and Wildlife to get a lake and stream bed alteration agreement for any items that CDFW, Department of Fish and Wildlife, deems jurisdictional. So that we are in the process of that, but we won't finalize that until project approval. In addition, the applicant proposes organic farming practices. And then I'll also let the applicant speak to themselves on how they operate their property. I also wanted to point out that CDFW and the Regional Water Quality Control Board provided online comments to the CEQA document, and the project is adhering to those comments. Oh, okay, I'm calming down. There were comments regarding traffic, cumulative impacts, and traffic safety. I know there's that hairpin kind of turn on High Valley Road that poses challenges for that road. I just wanted to talk about amounts of traffic, and then my colleague will actually talk about the road itself. The main employees for the project are really the property owners and applicants who already use the road. They expect 3 to 7 seasonal helpers, likely at the lower end, but we included the upper end to be conservative. So this would result in a traffic increase of about 6 to 14 trips per day at the higher end of the season. As for cumulative impacts, I want to point out that both Brassfield and Monte Cristo have been in operation for over 20 years. High Valley Oak Project, I interviewed the county and the owner, and they are very efficient. I was surprised. It's awesome. They have 2 regular employees and 1 or 2 seasonal employees, so their impact to the road is very minimal. This project that we're talking about today, combined with that project, is a small fraction of the existing, and each of those projects contribute, I would say, traffic at the same scale or is consistent with activities that are principally permitted on these parcels, and activities include a single-family home, an accessory dwelling unit, agricultural activities, farm housing, so it's a similar generation of traffic that would occur on other activities that don't require a use permit. 2 projects are in the hopper. Hypnotic, I think it's Hypnotic Farms and Lemon Grow. If approved, based on the information they provided, those projects provided the county, there would be additional 5 regular employees. And I think these 2 projects are beyond this project further down High Valley Road, and up to 25 seasonal employees. So cumulatively, if you double all those, I would say it's about, all projects combined, the cannabis projects that I just mentioned, would be about 100 trips per day, only during the peak season. And then there was comment about traffic incidents on High Valley Road. One of the commenters, I don't know where the data came from, but they're using it, so I just reviewed it just to see what was going on. Prior to 2021, per that information, from 2014 to 2020, there were the number of crashes ranged from 1 to 5, with the highest 5 being in 2019. There are no details on what type of crashes, it just says crashes. And then after that, I'm reading this. In 2021, there were 3 crashes. In 2022, there were 2. In 23, there was a bump up in 4, and then to 2024, there were 2, and then in 2025, we've had 1 so far. So I don't see an appreciable increase in crashes on High Valley Road. There were comments about semi-trucks. This project doesn't propose to use any semi-trucks that would get stuck on that hairpin lane that don't read the sign that say you're limited. You shouldn't drive down this road if your axles or your truck's a certain length. But this project doesn't propose using any semi-trucks. Just your typical trucks or possibly a box truck or a truck with a trailer. So the other thing I wanted to point out, although the project would contribute a small fraction of overall daily trips, the applicants are willing to implement a rideshare program for peak season employees if that is deemed appropriate for this project. And so now I'd like to give my colleague a chance to talk about the road. Thank you. And then we're here for any questions, and we'd like to have the ability to answer questions at the end if possible.
Good morning, commissioners and staff through the commission. My name is Praj White, and I'm a civil engineer. I've been practicing for over 25 years. I worked at Caltrans for a while and have been involved in transportation projects and assessment throughout my career. I wanted to touch base regarding roadway capacity, and particularly in rural two-lane road areas. Basically, AASHTO, or American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, and Caltrans Highway Capacity Manual are the guiding documents for assessing rural road capacity. These guidelines basically are used to help establish the optimum point for free flow traffic and safety. And generally, these documents refer to a level of service, and level of service is a metric that's measured between A and F. And level of service A is where you have basically less than 30% of the time you're following a vehicle, and it's very, you're barely using the capacity of the road, and it feels like a very rural road. Level of capacity C, is the target for most jurisdictions for capacity on a road. And level of service C is where you still have good free-flowing traffic, there's very little delay, and it's at optimum point of safety versus expense of working on a roadway. And most public works departments and Caltrans have to justify improvements to roadways, or we'd be improving roads and little rural roads all over the state, and it would just be incredibly expensive, and it will never happen. So our guidance documents give us thresholds. They call them warrants. You have to exceed certain traffic incidents or certain traffic capacities or delay to warrant improvements. And just to give us kind of a good sense, first, level of service A, free flow. Level of service C is that optimum balance of traffic flow and safety. These numbers, I'm going to talk a couple of numbers, and they're in general, so bear with me for a second while I run through it. But in general, a two-lane road has a capacity to pass 2,800 to 3,200 vehicles per hour, and that is a level of service C. So we're talking 3,000 cars per hour is a capacity of a road where safety and free flow are considered on a two-lane road. Now that's really a generalization. Level of service A on a roadway is usually about 30% of that level of service capacity C, so we would be talking about 1,000 trips per hour is a level of service A, which means it's free flow, it feels like a rural road, and it feels low density on that road. If we just, for this conversation purpose, say that a rural road that's barely being used and feels like it's safe and free flow traffic, let's pull a number 250 cars per hour. I'm just using that number to say, I mentioned a couple thousand, 1,000, but just using 250 to balance things out. Peak hour traffic is usually around 10% of, when you look at, mixing up the moment. So 250 cars per hour, that would still be level of service A, barely touching the capacity of the road. If we had 250 cars per hour, that usually represents 10% of the daily traffic. So again, just going backwards, that would put us back to 2,000 cars a day on the road. It was reported somewhere in the comments that this road recently has seen up to 400 vehicles per day. And if we think of the peak hour traffic, it's 1/10 of that. So it'd be 40 cars per hour is what this road has been seeing. And Ms. Dodd went through and did a decent summary of all the other projects associated with cannabis and coming that could potentially add 100 trips per day or maybe 10 trips per hour at the peak hour. So what I'm saying is 25 cars per hour, 10 new cars per hour, we're 35, and we're talking about a roadway that has a real clear capacity of 1,000 cars an hour. So rounded up 50 out of 1,000, we're talking 2% of the roadway capacity. And so when it comes to trying to trigger a warrant or look at anything, we really have no significant impact to the roadway. And today we're talking about a project that has maybe 14 trips per day, which is going to add maybe 2 trips per peak hour. And it's just very insignificant to the road, and there's no significant impact there. I also wanted to just identify that as you go out this roadway, and we're High Valley Oaks, when we come off of 20 and you go through a couple turns, very quickly this road becomes a very low volume road. And under guidance from AASHTO and Caltrans, there's a special document created for low volume rural roads. And generally a low volume rural road has traffic of less than 400 vehicles per day. And so my guess is by the time you get close to Brassfield, the traffic is very, very low. And when you have less than 400 vehicles per day, then the guidance is less about the roadway and more about driver awareness and opportunity to pull out of the way. So I'm just wanting to indicate that we're barely touching the threshold of capacity, and we're really talking about a very low volume rural road. And it's hard to justify that there is a capacity issue. If you have any questions, we'll be here to respond. As Ms. Dodd mentioned, we'd like the opportunity to rebuttal after public comment. And I wanted to thank, through the chair to staff, that I watched how hard Angie and team have worked. The applicants have been agreeable to all of the requirements. Max and staff have really held a hard standard and bring to you today a very well thought out project addressing all the issues and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Are there any questions?
I have a question for the, regarding the property management plan, so I suspect this is for Ms. Dodd. And then I have some other questions for staff, but I think they'll probably be answered in discussion. And the property management plan on page 6, paragraph 3 of the introduction states that sub-plans should be amended basically whenever anything goes wrong. Are we suggesting that if it doesn't fit the plan, we change the plan to allow the violation? I mean, is this, a property management plan, I expect it to like give guidance.
You're on PDF page, Angie with North Point Consulting. You're on what, PDF page 6 or page 6 at the bottom? I'm reading the same thing you are.
It's at the introduction, so there's like
it's at the top of the page.
Yeah, it's like the cover sheet. It's on the document page 6, so that there's the cover page and then there's
under administrative controls.
Let's see if I can find it. It's the property management plan, right at the very beginning. You're talking about.
So there, can you give me the section number? Like 3.7.1 or 3.7.2?
No, I'm just looking at my notes, and I just said page 6, paragraph 3 of the intro. The introduction to the document.
Oh, so you are at PDF page 6, it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just, my problem is, it doesn't address anything. It doesn't say if something goes wrong, if there's a violation, it doesn't say what to do, except to go back and change the plan.
So this is a living,
Dramatic.
so we call these living documents. I'm still trying to find, you said it's the third paragraph?
Yeah.
Still trying to find where you're
Um,
referring to.
Okay.
It's in section 1
Okay.
on PDF, page 6.
PDF.
Right.
I think where it says relevant subplans should also be amended whenever the goals of the plan are not met. I believe that's maybe what,
Yeah, so.
Yeah, because it's a living document, so if something significantly changes in their activities, they reduce cultivation, cultivation type, we just have it as it's a property management plan for an I know it's commercial cannabis, but it's an agricultural activity, and things change over time as you learn, you do things differently. So, you know, if anything significantly changes and triggers a modification, that was the point to this. But again, this is just a summary. It's, you know, they do their annual reports, and what I would expect is during a county annual report and inspection, if something has changed to the point that the county would like the property management plan modified, that's kind of what it's going towards.
Okay.
It's just to allow that there's possibility that this could be modified if things change.
Okay.
But it has to be within the permit that's approved
Right.
and
okay,
in
that's-
concert with the county.
That's what I want to hear. I feel obligated to call it out when it says, if there's a problem, if there's a violation, we just go change the plan. I mean,
Well,
that's not okay.
it's really, they have to work within the confines of the approved permit, which is this property management plan is part of. So it would still have to be the permit. And then if it's something they want to change and it requires a modification to their permit, that's a different situation. It would require a modification to this, but it would also require an application to the county to get
Correct.
that approved before it starts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Anything else?
Not concerning you, I don't think, no.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and open public comment. Whoever wishes to speak, come up to the podium. Well, since you're part of the applicant team,
Yeah, I'm the owner.
okay, I'm going to close public comment and I'll let you go.
Okay, great.
State your first and last name and
Oh,
be sure to write,
it's Kurt Barthel.
yeah, and be sure to write your name in there for the record as well. There should be a, no notebook? Oh.
No?
Okay, just state your first and last name for the record and we'll
Okay,
get a piece
it's
of paper
Kurt,
there.
and the last name's Barthel. B as in boy, A-R-T-H-E-L. Okay. You want me to read the statement now?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Confusing.
No kidding.
Okay, good morning, Chair and Commissioners. It's great to be able to talk to you. My name is Kurt Barthel. Poverty Flats is a small family-owned and operated ranch owned by myself, and I'm a retired Deputy Labor Commissioner. My brother, Bobby Barthel, sort of known as Robert, but most people call him Bobby. He's a retired City of Lakeport employee, and my sister, Jeanette Derry, a retired high school teacher in Seattle. We have owned and maintained this working ranch since 1978. So we've been there for a long time. My brother Bobby has been a longtime resident of Kelseyville, where he raised his two sons. My wife and I also lived in Lake County for several years. During that time, I worked for the Sheriff's Department and later the Lake County Welfare Department before eventually taking a position with the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement in San Jose. In that capacity, I was there for 32 years, but the last 21 years were in Humboldt County as a Deputy Labor Commissioner. My family and I have carefully maintained the property with a strong commitment to preserve the natural character of the valley. Over time, we've built positive and collaborative relationships with our neighbors at the winery and further up the road. As we move forward with this project, we are dedicated to the responsible land stewardship, investing our own resources to bring it to life. We will make use of our existing well and access roads, both of which were constructed in compliance with CAL FIRE standards to minimize our environment and impact. We plan to power the site with solar energy, which will support the well pump and security lighting. The solar panels will go in once we get an electrical and the permit from the county to do that. They're all stored there. Over the next few years, my family plans to take on a majority of the work to establish an organic farm. We are committed to proceeding only with the proper approvals in place, including building and grading permits from the county, permits from both Fish and Wildlife and Water Board. There was a mention by someone of a public in the public about law enforcement activity this past winter. Unfortunately, it was a drunk driver who appeared to attempt a road rally up High Valley Road and missed a curve, and was launched over the edge. The incident prompted responses from the Sheriff's Department, Highway Patrol, Fire Department, and ambulance. To our knowledge, this has been the only law enforcement activity in the area since our family acquired the property. Approval of this project will provide my family with a diverse source of income, considering we're all retired, helping financially sustain and maintain our property, and we sincerely thank you for your time and consideration of the proposal. And do you have any questions?
No questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
When you talk about agriculture, what exactly are we talking about? When you said that it's been an agricultural use, what agriculture have?
We've been trying to plant trees up there to mitigate the other fires.
Yeah.
And then we've been basically maintaining the road to keep it from washing away. And then the ag part really has always been to this design, but we've never been to the point where we could set up a project and have someone help us work through it. And we've been basically keeping it cleaned up around the hunting cabins so that there would be no fire problems, and clearing not some of the scrub on the hillsides and stuff to mitigate any fire coming in that way.
So my concern is about with the term agriculture, and I noticed somewhere in these documents it refers to a neighboring agricultural use. I believe it's the neighbor to your south.
We have one to the north.
Okay.
Well, northwest, and then we border down with Grassfield.
Okay.
And there's no one to the east.
So are there
to the west?
Okay, so are we talking about vineyards or?
Yeah, Grassfield Vineyard
Okay.
is on our southern border,
Okay.
and northwest is a cannabis grow.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a question. In the myriad of paper that we received, there was a mention of hoop houses. Were you going, it's mostly an outdoor grow. There was a mention that there might be hoop houses that might come along?
That was, it would be way down the road before we do anything like that. If we have people coming up to help with the trimming or anything like that, they will be housed down in Clear Lake Oaks at a hotel and commute up together.
So that's not part on the current property?
Here, I'm gonna answer that, Rusty.
I'm gonna let her answer that. 'Cause I'm about ready to leave.
So there's no trimming. I just want to clarify that the permit does not include on-site trimming. There are four greenhouses proposed for nursery, and those would be required to get a building permit. So those, I expect in a few years down the road that those would be installed through the lake. So it's outdoor cultivation, but Lake County has provided cultivators with the opportunity to grow in ag-exempt hoops, which you get an over-the-counter permit for ag-exempt hoops. And so in this application, we've pointed out that if they like, because there's an expense to hoops and putting those up and taking them down, if they like, they will take the opportunity, if they can and can afford it, to use the ag-exempt hoop ordinance if necessary.
Could you speak to what that means, ag-exempt hoops?
We did have an ordinance adopted regarding temporary hoop houses specifically for cannabis cultivation, which has been enacted, and I think this is our second year now of issuing those permits. They are for 180 days, so during the grow season, they do get a temporary permit for the construction of those, and then a demolition permit is scheduled also to confirm the dismantling of those during the off-season.
So it's a finite period of time that they're up.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any more questions before I open public comment?
I have a question. I was looking for the exact location, but I noted in my notes under agency comments, I have that CAL FIRE stated that the road issues were not addressed, and I think that's the big discussion we need to have here at some point when we're ready to do that. My only other question for the applicant is, I'd like to have a very precise idea what, I don't know if I can ask this question, but what size of trucks will you be needing? Is that a question I can ask? Is that within our jurisdiction?
That would be included within the project description.
Okay.
I believe that Ms. Dodd has already addressed that cars.
She did in a vague
vans,
way.
trucks, possibly with a trailer.
Yeah, I think you used the term box truck. Can we have a tighter definition of that?
So that's like a U-Haul, just a simple U-Haul.
How long?
28 feet. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think this is going to feed into a bigger discussion about the roads because most of the comments we've received are about the roads.
Okay.
Yeah, and a quick question. Did you say that there were not any signs currently on the road prohibiting
No,
length of
there is,
truck
as
or-
you, granted, I was looking at Google Earth and the road view on Google Earth, I'm not sure what date that was, but as you just enter High Valley Road, but right at the school, it's not a big sign, but there is a sign that says, and it's not, you shall not, it's, we suggest you don't.
Right.
So it's not a, I think, yeah, but that's the sign that's there.
Thank you.
I have one more question. When you say that earlier that got a federal lands with a variance, or you signed they signed a
It's called an indemnification agreement. I'll let
indemnification?
Max speak to
Yeah,
that.
what does that mean?
We're talking about the cannabis being transported over federal properties.
Yeah, so cannabis is still illegal everywhere in California, in the sense that it is still federally illegal. So federal agents, no matter where you are in California, can enforce federal law. So there is no distinction in that regard between federal lands and California lands. So it doesn't matter if you are transporting over federal lands or through California jurisdiction, the federal law still applies. So this indemnity is in response to concerns that have come up in the past regarding properties where the only access to that particular use is through federal lands, and it effectively makes every party involved aware that that is a risk, and it remains a risk, and provides for indemnity in relation to that risk, if that answers the question.
So it just gives permission for them to transport product across federal lands?
No, it doesn't give permission. What it does is it recognizes that it allows for a recognition. The applicant is aware that regardless of this particular use, that California allows for local municipalities to adopt and create regulations related to this use and allow for this use under state law. It is still, no matter what, a crime under federal law, and the county is not waiving those obligations. The county is not alleviating those obligations. The county cannot make that go away.
So we are not seeing that indemnification document. I'd just like to know who's being indemnified. Is it the county that's being protected, or is it the actual driver, or?
Was it not included?
I didn't see it.
Are we speaking of the indemnity that's attached, or the general indemnity related to the application?
We're talking about the one regarding federal lands.
Yeah,
My understanding was the transportation over the BLM properties, that the High Valley Road goes through BLM land.
If I remember correctly, the language was that the county would be indemnified by the applicant should their actions as resulting from the approval or any county action relating to approval of this application, that the applicant, and then were that to create some kind of liability, that the applicant would indemnify the county for that.
But this allows for the applicant to drive his product across federal lands. I didn't, it just made reference to it, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
questions.
no,
I don't know how it works.
we cannot give permission for that. That is by definition a federal crime. So the county cannot waive that. The county can only do what the county has authority to do, which in this case is approve use on a particular piece of property. And we do allow for the cannabis use on certain zoned property. And the only decision the county can make in those circumstances is whether or not, under county ordinance and state law, that use is permissible. And that is the only decision we're making here. We are not, your commission and the board do not have authority to give permission to engage in criminal activities as defined by the federal rules anywhere. So those engaged in cannabis activity do in fact take on that risk anywhere in California that a federal agency may enforce federal laws as to that activity, and we cannot change that. The county cannot change that.
Okay.
So effectively, that's
thinking,
what.
So they have this operation, and so do they get, are they subject to trouble every time that they try to drive out? Is that how that works?
I think this is a bigger issue. I mean, there's a lot of interstate roads throughout California. And
okay, so
I don't know.
Maybe we don't have, maybe this is not part of our decision making, but I just thought, well, that's interesting. They're going up there, but they can't drive that out because they get in trouble. Anyway.
There's a risk of getting in trouble. It really just depends on the federal agency responsible for policing those lands that are federal, and whether or not they do in fact aggressively engage in enforcement of those particular rules. And the county doesn't make those decisions.
Right.
The agency themselves, that particular agency itself does. The county doesn't have an impact on that, and just by issuing a permit here, we don't change those.
Okay.
Yeah. So this use permit won't be a defense if, say for example, BLM enforcement agents
decide to
start enforcing those rules. This permit does not give permission to engage in those activities and does not provide a defense.
Okay, so we have not said, not a problem, go ahead. And
Right.
So then we get in trouble.
Right, exactly.
Everybody's in trouble. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open public input. Each member of the public that wishes to speak can come forward to the podium. Is there a paper up there?
I just put a paper.
Okay. Please state your first and last name and write your name in there for the record. And you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name's Maria Kahn. I'm a resident in High Valley and subject to everything that comes along with the cannabis grows that you're putting up there. I have several issues that I am going to bring up. Cumulative, unresolved safety, environmental, and procedural issues for this project raises, and all the cannabis projects. So for the past 4 years, we have consistently raised the following hazards relating to High Valley Road: excessive vehicle speeds, oversized trucks overtaking narrow lanes, trucks frequently stuck at Horseshoe Bend, road width non-compliant with California Fire Safety Code, numerous blind curves, increased cumulative traffic from multiple commercial operations, inadequate safety signage, speed limits, flood zones, wildlife, etc. Escalating congestion posing serious evacuation risks during emergencies, absence of street lighting, no road edge or white markings, no white lines on the roads, no pedestrian sidewalks, no shoulders, no turnouts. The road also is 3.5 miles in length up to Brassfield's last entrance, and beyond that it is an undeveloped gravel, no lines, no barriers, road that travels up the ridge into the forest. It's dirt, dusty, potholes, ruts. It's very difficult to traverse this, and I know that Commissioner Chavez has driven up there, and he knows what he has seen. We've discussed this in past hearings. So also, there is high foot traffic and vehicle traffic around East Lake School, which all traffic coming into the valley passes right by the school and poses a threat to those people that attend the school and to and from on a daily basis, twice a day, when they come to pick up and drop off. The cannabis operations generally will operate 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And any sort of quiet, idyllic country life that we have had has now been interrupted by hundreds of cars coming in and out of our little valley on a daily basis. And Sundays are not excluded. I've been working on a traffic study, which I'm not a traffic engineer. I simply put a camera down on the road, and I'm doing a manual tally of cars in and cars out based on the pictures that I am collecting. In the past, I'm not done with my tally. It's not prettied up to give to you, but I am working on it, and I will be presenting it to either you or the Board of Supervisors. Oh, shoot. I had so much more. Okay, so I'm concerned about water. Obviously, my well went dry. Fire risk, because there's very little information about the solar panels that they're going to put. There's very little information on that. The grading permits show that this property is more than 30% based on the review for sufficiency document. And there was trenching that was supposedly okay when they did the grading inspection, which was supposed to be for fire suppression, but incidentally follows all the lines of their cultivation fields. So I'm also concerned about dogs. Are they going to have dogs on the property? We've seen cannabis grows that have animals, and somebody needs to be taking care of those. Will there be armed people on the property? Are we going to have firearms? This is and it also, will it be patrolled, fenced and patrolled, because this is a scheduled drug that they're growing. Because I ran out of my time, I think I need to wrap it up, I understand. But we have lots of issues with problems. One other point I want to make is the traffic stuff that we're getting. It's in multiple places with the CHP, different databases, different sites. I've been trying to accumulate. There's no one place that you're going to get cumulative information about it, and so we are gathering those documents to present a case about the excessive amounts. Over 150 to 200 vehicles a day are already traveling up and down, in and out of our valley based on 2 wineries and a couple of approved grows already. So it's just increasing, and there just seems to be no cap. And so I walk every day. I'm constantly standing on the side of the road to corral my dogs as traffic goes by both directions. There's nowhere to step off. I'm basically on a road with no lines, no solid sidewalks, no shoulders. So I know I went over my time. I thank you very much. I just hope you consider denying these projects. We've already got enough going on in this valley with the brass field expanding. So it's only going to get worse from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. State your first and last name for the record, and when you get a chance to write it in the notepad provided.
Please don't start me till I finish writing.
Yeah.
Good morning. Yeah, it's still morning. Good morning, Commissioners, Chair Chavez. I apologize for information not getting to you. Thankfully, you should have hard copies of there, and one of those is please consider it a keepsake. It's the actual Title 14 regulations for road safety that it would be nice for you to refer to. There was, and I'm going to talk mostly about not so much roads and how many cars drive on it and things like that. This is the same thing I talked about before in a different hearing. It's the fire safety regulations not being followed. High Valley Road is, there's no dispute that road is the major road for ingress and egress for this project and several others. And it has to follow the Title 14 state requirements for safety, and it does not. The one thing that's maybe a little bit more interesting than the last time I was here is that that portion of Highland Valley Road near Poverty Flats is considered a strategic ridge line, and that provides particular interest for fire safety. The High Valley Road is probably the most famous and most infamous county road that we have, because on the famous side, that's where we fought the fire. You know, that's where the line was drawn, and it kept it out of that valley. And it's not the first time, and it won't be the last time. The Lake County Community Wildfire Protection Plan has that road as, at the time, as an undeveloped fire protection ridgeline, strategic ridgeline. And CEQA requires that that be taken into consideration. That's the good side. That's the notable. The notorious side is the number of accidents that happen on the southern side. The entrance at Cal State Highway 20 to High Valley Farms is particularly dangerous. Probably has more accidents than most county roads ever have. The data that has been submitted to you has come from the CHP logs. There's also sheriff logs that are also being compiled for accidents. This year alone, we've had 4 accidents in the year just started, and one of those, it has been a fatality. The main concern as it pertains to fire safety is the road blockage. That hairpin turn is 25 feet in diameter, and CAL FIRE radius requirements require them to be no more or no less than 50 feet. It's actually geometrically impossible for a large truck to get around that corner without without going outside its lane and blocking other traffic, which happens all the time. The road grade is over 16%. In many cases, it's over 20%. Would you mind yielding time? Margo would.
We'll give you 2 more minutes.
Okay, well, I'll take it.
Yeah, when someone passes their time, I'll allow another 2 minutes.
I appreciate it. So you have that issue. The grade exceeds the grade requirement, which you should see in the document I provided, of 16%. In many cases, it's over 30%. And it, in several areas, for extending for almost a quarter mile, it does not meet the CAL FIRE requirements for road width. Particularly near the school, it's around 15, 16 feet. We measured it about a week ago for about 2 miles, and we provided that information. And it does not meet the width requirement. And that's why there are so many accidents there blocking traffic. And it is the evacuation route. And because it is an evacuation route, it doesn't automatically mean that it's safe. It just means that's the only way in and out. It is a dead-end road, even though it goes to Bartlett Springs in Lucerne. The Forest Service closes the road during emergencies. So it is effectively a dead-end road, and it exceeds the mile limit for dead-end roads. On the site near Poverty Flats, the ridge line that they built on exceeds grades of 50% on either side, which exacerbates the fire, and that should have been addressed, and it was not addressed in the documentation. It just basically says they have a defensible space, and they have 4290 compliant roads on their property. And as we've discussed in the past, and as you can see in the documentation, that is not sufficient. You've driven the road, and then finally, during the Sowers High Valley Road project, Mr. De Leon came in and acknowledged that the road needs to be mitigated. Last year, Vance Ricks from DWP also acknowledged that the road is dangerous and has to be mitigated, but it hasn't been mitigated. You can't have a negative declaration.
That is the 2 minutes, if you would like to just wrap it up.
Yeah, this is the last couple sentences. You can't say that you can't have a mitigated declaration when you've already acknowledged that it has to be mitigated, and it still has yet to be mitigated. So that's that won't survive a sequel challenge. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have any hands in the Zoom room?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have Holly Harris.
All right, we have one Zoom room hand. Last. All right, I heard the last name Harris first. We'll take that speaker first, and for the record, state your first and last name, and we will give you 3 minutes.
Okay, actually, my name is Chuck Lamb. I am the husband of Holly Harris, and I live in Clear Lake Oaks. A number of questions were brought up about the federal law of transporting cannabis. I just want to go a little bit further on that. In your packet, under agency comments, page 1 of 21, is a BLM letter warning the county of the federal law that makes it illegal to transport cannabis on federal lands and has identified Poverty Flats as a project that conflicts with the law. Further, in the staff report, page 6 of 21, under the heading of federal land crossing, is a paragraph acknowledging the risks and mentions a signed indemnification agreement with the applicant. Interestingly, I could not find a copy of the signed waiver in the packet. As an extremely important document for Planning Commission and or the board to consider. With new commissioners seated, it would seem prudent to include the waiver for their review. On the indemnity agreement, the signed waiver absolves the county of any and all liability should the federal government decide to take action by enforcing the law on the applicant. However, the county, knowing that Poverty Flats cannot operate without breaking federal law, will be receiving property and sales tax from an operation that is operating illegally. In my opinion, those funds are what we call dirty money. Further, the signed agreement specifically states that the applicant understands that transporting cannabis on federal lands is illegal and violators could face federal criminal action. Also, it does not protect the applicant, employees, the public, and or third-party transporters from federal enforcement. The forthcoming new cannabis ordinance, if adopted, is recommending allowing retail sales and consumption lounges to permittees, which unknowingly exposes the public to federal punishment should they leave the premises with cannabis. The public would be at high risk without knowing it. The contention that the feds are not enforcing the law is not relevant, as they could at any time. Regarding the board approval, I have a question, and that question is the indemnification document legal and binding? I showed the document to a supervisor who was a member of the board at the time the document was authored, who knew nothing about the waiver.
That is the 3-minute timer.
Astonished.
Sir, if you would like to just wrap up your comment and finish your question.
Okay. Yeah, I don't believe that it actually has been approved by the Board of Supervisors. And if not, something of this enormity and risk, in my opinion, should. And finally, in summary, does Lake County want to send a message to the world that we approve projects knowing that the applicant will be breaking the law? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. There was a question associated with that comment. Would council or director, would you guys
Was
like
it
to
the
answer?
rhetorical question at the end, or was it a
The
different
question before that one about the indemnification agreement.
Oh, we do have that ready for the applicant to sign. It will be part of the final permit.
All right, thank you.
I'd be happy to read it to you if you have further questions about it.
I think if
It was developed through conferring with county council.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if there's further questions about the indemnification, we can save them to the end before we.
As well as typically, we do not run indemnifications past the Board of Supervisors for their approval. It's more of a legal document that we have a standard one that's part of all of our applications. But we've never taken that to the board for their approval, since the board is more of a policymaker rather than a legal body that approves agreements.
Just
of that
a question.
type.
Sorry, just a question. Are there other projects in the county for which there's an indemnification agreement?
All of our use permits, well, actually all of our planning permits include a standard indemnification agreement with the county. This is the only one that's particular to cannabis and specific to understanding the crossing of federal lands.
So this is the only one the first?
Oh, no, we have others in place. Yeah, we use it where appropriate, where a certain project would be crossing through BLM or federal lands.
Right, but is this the first cannabis one?
No.
Oh, it's not. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to take up some more Zoom hands before I bring it back to the chambers, if that's all right.
Yeah.
All right, Speaker Randy, state your first and last name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Sorry, I have to unmute myself here. Good morning, Commission. My name's Randy Wilk, and I'm a resident of High Valley Road area and a representative of Clear Lake Oak Hillside Firewise neighborhood. So I'm coming from a residential neighborhood point of view, and also a victim of the Glen Haven fire that we just recently had. On behalf of our community, we strongly urge to deny the major use permit of Poverty Flat project. This project, when considered along with several other cannabis operations already approved or pending in High Valley Road, creates serious cumulative risks to our safety, environment, and infrastructure, especially in a very high fire hazard zone. The cumulatively impact of the project for traffic and roads have not been seriously considered nor studied by the county. Since inception, project including Monte Cristo, High Valley Oaks, Lou Farms, and Poverty Flats, plus Brassfield Winery, have increased traffic in High Valley roads from about 30 to 400 vehicles a day. And considering the various narrow corridors, which were not talked about previously, like near East Lake Elementary School, becomes very dangerous and congested and not manageable. The road is narrow, winding, and not designated for this volume and emergency access. We have seen fourfold increase in traffic incidents, and lately every other day, semi-trucks frequently getting stuck at Horseshoe Bend. That's the U-curve towards Brassfield. The speed limit has been raised to 55 miles an hour, which only increases the danger. I don't know why they increased the speed limit. That's crazy. High Valley Road, along with Cerrito Alta Vista, have been falsely claimed to meet California fire safe regulations. Roads are under 20 feet wide, hazardous turns, steep grades, dead ends, and are poorly maintained. We do not have a viable secondary ingress and egress, as stipulated by state in very high fire hazard zones. Alternatives like Mountain View Drive or High Valley Forest Service Road 220 are not regularly graded and rarely during a severe fire for fire lines and access only. That's the only time they grade these roads, is during a fire. Roads often closed or impassable during wildfires. In an emergency, residents were trapped in several serious wildfires, as for example, 2015, 2018 Complex Fire, and recently Glen Haven. A couple of us were victims of the Glen Haven fire. The environmental and CEQA review is incomplete. The environmental documents submitted for this project fail to describe.
And sir, those are your 3 minutes, if you would like to wrap up your comment.
Yeah, I just want to say, highlight, there's serious risk to children's safety at the East Lake Elementary School. The school is at the base of High Valley Road and Highway 20 intersection. Increased truck traffic and speeding has already posed a direct threat to children and safety, staff safety, and can expose the county to potential legal and financial liability. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. The next hand in the Zoom room.
Yeah, it's just a guest.
Okay, guest. We're gonna mute you and state your first and last name for the record. And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. My name is Angela Amaral, and I wanted to comment on first, maybe I missed it in the project management plan, but will the plants be grown in the ground or above ground in fabric pots? Fabric pots are non-biodegradable, and I don't know of any other local commercial crop that's grown outdoors above ground in non-biodegradable pots made of polypropylene plastic. So that would be my first question. The second one is I would have to agree with Mr. Lamb regarding the issue of the waiver not being approved by the Board of Supervisors prior to implementation by CDD. I understand Director Turner's response that the waiver went through legal counsel. However, this waiver creates a significant exposure to liability that the Board of Supervisors should be made aware of and approve its use on these projects that border or traverse federal lands. Right now, the waiver was created by CDD and County Council. So I would just like you guys to consider that as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any more? Carrie? Terry? Go ahead, state your first and last name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. Terry, could you unmute yourself? Or hold the space bar. I think you muted yourself back. Are there any other hands in the Zoom room? Okay. Oh, I think.
May I speak?
There we go. We can hear you now.
Oh, thank you.
State your
I
first
wasn't
and last
sure
name
how
for the
to-
record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Terry Yelitz. I have property on Cerrito Drive, very close to Monte Cristo. I agree with the comments on the road, the safety of the road. Also, Maria Khan's information that she provided, as well as the engineer that previously talked. What I wanted to say is that the traffic during construction of this project or any other project, as I've witnessed on Monte Cristo, is going to be heavy. It's going to be heavy traffic, heavy trucks, and lots of cars. That doesn't go away. It remains after the project is completed because there are workers that come and go. I've heard about carpooling, but frankly, it doesn't happen at Monte Cristo. What does happen at Monte Cristo is 2 traffic rush hours per day. And unfortunately, the last rush hour is almost exactly when the school at the bottom of High Valley Road is leading out. High Valley Road school area has no parking for the parents, so they have to walk across, get their kids and walk back across to their parked cars. That presents quite a bit of a danger because a lot of the farm workers do not appear to know what the speed limits are, nor do they recognize them if they are posted. I think that we need to post those speed limits on High Valley Road again, perhaps back to 30, as I'm told it was at one time, as well as limit, not recommend, but limit the size of the trucks that go on that road. I would recommend that the board consider not approving this project until the road issues are addressed at least as an interim basis. Lots of studies, lots of talks, but nothing has been done, and I think something could be done on the interim. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any more hands in the Zoom room? Is it the same person? I'm gonna take some hands here in the chambers, and then we'll give it a chance if there's any more questions in Zoom later. I did notice there was one person here in chambers that wanted to speak. Please state your first and last name. There's a pad in there. You could also write it in. And we'll give you 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Cody Leck, and staff and neighbors. And so I am the owner of High Valley Oaks and the operator that's adjacent to the Barthol project. And as I've sat here today and listened to all the community feedback and stuff, I just wanted to address a couple of those things. The one that really stuck out to me the most was the federal law enforcement. The entire state of California is exposed to federal law enforcement of our cannabis projects, along with 25, 30 other states across the nation, generating billions of dollars of revenue, tax, or profits for businesses. So the argument being that they would want to come after one particular farm for a 280-foot roadway across BLM seems a little far-fetched to me. Could they do it? They absolutely could, but I think there's bigger fish to fry in this world than a small family-owned business. So I just wanted to address that. The second thing is road issues, and I know Maria here walks up and down the roads. I've seen her a lot, and I very slowly drive by her in the mornings with her dogs. I've even stopped to say hi, because I'm a very friendly and also curious man, and I want to be respectful of people. And likewise are the Barthols. I've known Bob and them. They've owned their property much longer than I have, and they're great guys, super friendly. And I know another one of the neighbors' concerns are fire. We're also very concerned about fire, and I would welcome any of you guys up to my property so I could show you the fire mitigation risks that we have put up on the ridge, which is this gentleman has identified as where CAL FIRE dug their heels in from the Mendocino Complex fire. My property was burned down by actual CAL FIRE, why they tried doing a back burn on our property to stop that fire coming up, and the previous landowner lost his cabin and stuff by CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE also left giant, brims from their dozers going up and down the road, and the brims which we have came through and now got grading permits to fix on our own dime and expense from their mess. But I know for a fact that me and Bob are both very fire conscious, and we have fire mitigation things up there. And if they're out of all the property owners on that ridge up in there, we are the only ones that maintain our properties and also do fire mitigation and protection work. And my property in particular, if there was a fire up there, we would maybe have a grass fire at best, because I've taken out probably 80% of the dead trees. County knows about all of this. You could go talk to community development department. I'm in there all the time making sure I'm not doing anything I'm not supposed to do, asking for permission, having a good open line of communication with the county, because we are so highly regulated. More so than probably any other agricultural or commercial operation within the county. I think cannabis is scrutinized more than any of us. As far as annual inspections from the county, being compliant, getting written up for violations, following up, making sure our violations have been fixed and addressed, but also from the state and Fish and Game. It's crazy what we have to go through, and I'm sure Max is very aware of this. And I know my 3 minutes is up, but I believe Jared is going to let me speak for a couple more minutes here, please, because I am.
We'll give him 2 more minutes.
A little bit long-winded. So I just wanted to address the law enforcement side, also the fire mitigation stuff, because we're all very conscious of that. That's not just particularly you guys as good neighbors and stuff, but also our livelihoods depend on these businesses. Me in particular, I've got a 15-month-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. This is how I feed my family and provide a roof and house for them. So we are members of the community as well. And driving by the schools, knowing that there's children down here, Bob and them have kids, grandkids. We're all very conscious of this. And the workers that we do employ also have kids and families. So we're all aware of the community, having the elementary school down at the bottom of the hill. And I would just like to say that most of the time during our operations, there is a small overlap of when the school's in place, when we are operating, but it's mostly summer. You know, the heavy extent of our work is all done during summer when school's out. So there is like that variable to be considered as well. I am very concerned about the roads too. As a business owner, our roads are terrible. I've spent $10,000 rebuilding the front end of my truck the last couple of years going up and down High Valley Road. So for us as business owners, we are concerned about that as well. Like, we're paying money out of pocket because the county's not maintaining the roads. You know, I talked to Dan, and we probably file, between Bob and I, we probably file more road complaints than anyone up on the High Valley Road we pay a ton of money in taxes. Like, you guys, please come fix our road. You know, it takes the road graders 4 hours to go from my driveway down, back, down, and back. I've timed this for a couple years. We're talking about 4 hours once a year, once a month to maintain our road for that community's safety. I don't feel like that's a lot to ask for. As far as a horseshoe bend hairpin turn, I have been stuck behind Brassfield's trucks that have like fallen off that hairpin turn because they do bring up their giant semis. For us as operators, the biggest trucks we have had when we were like building things out were some truck and transfers, which don't have like that huge swing because they have the truck and transfer bringing up compost, perhaps soil for Bob and them. That's a one-time deal. Once that, material's on site, we don't need to do that anymore. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up as well. And as far as just like day-to-day workers and stuff, we run very efficiently. Brassfield's got 700 acres of planted grapes, expanding more.
That is the extra time allotted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
for your
much.
time and your consideration. I just want to voice my support for this project. I know Bob and them have owned their property for 50-some years, and this is like the best and highest use for them to utilize their land, but also for the county to make revenue and tax revenue for the rest of the county and community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Anybody else in the chambers wish to speak? Seeing none, we're gonna take a look back. Hopefully, we got that speaker too. Oh, guest. We're gonna go ahead and allow you to speak. State your first and last name for the record.
Sorry, I guess I forgot to put my hand down. Angela Amaral, but since I'm given the chance to speak again, I just want to point out, as mentioned by Commissioner Fields, the waiver was not included in the project documents. And I think such an important document like the indemnification waiver not being included in the attachments for this project is concerning. So thank you.
Just for the record, I'm perfectly happy with the answer from County Council.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close public input for this section, for this item.
And again, Commissioners, we do have the copy here. It can be read into the record if you prefer to hear it.
Thank you. So public comment is closed. We will bring it back to the commission for.
Do we have a chance to rebuttal as applicant?
Yeah, so public comment will be closed, but you guys are welcome to answer any questions from the commission.
Okay. Can we give you a couple comments in response to what we heard?
Public comment will be closed, but you'll be allowed to speak. So after this, public comment is closed. So public comment is closed, but you're allowed to come up here and rebuttal.
Again, my name is Praj White, and I'm part of the applicant team. I just wanted to address a couple of the comments that we heard during open public comment. You heard my presentation about road capacity, and we heard that the current counts were more like 150 to 200 based on known information. When we talk about fire protection, we heard that CAL FIRE has actually gone up onto this ridge, has plenty of access to get there, and has used this as a center to fight off the fires and been there before. When we talk about 1492, county maintained, we're talking that applies to the private side of that, where there is a county road section, so you have county road right away all the way up to the property, and that is the county. If you would look throughout the region, I would assure you that lots of county roads don't meet 1492, and if I'm using the wrong acronym, I apologize for that. I put different numbers in my head, but I wanted to make sure that the clarity of that is there's a difference between the county maintained portions, and an example of that is the county chose to up the speed to 55 miles an hour. It was a decision based on warrants and function and reports of safety and traffic flow, and that was an action by the county to update that because they are paying attention to the statistics and the data and the flow and capacity of that roadway. I wanted to touch in on the federal comments. I know that applies, and the gentleman before me mentioned it, but 24 states are legalized for recreational, and 39 states in total are recognized for medical. And so we're talking a huge ordeal. This indemnification makes a lot of sense. The applicant has to admit and acknowledge what risk they're taking on, and the county's liability is waived. It makes a lot of sense that that would be there, and they can be informed. I've worked on lots of projects that have roadways that go through federal properties or federal lands, and in speaking to the managers of the different forests, that BLM is that, you know, generally their concern is that they issue certificates for use of large commercial vehicles to run through, and that is their only regulatory program. So if you're using normal private vehicles, truck and trailer, and you are not running commercial vehicles as part of your operation, there is never a question about who's using the federal roads. So just there's a process for that when you are using commercial vehicles across federal lands. In this case, that is not the case, and wanted to just reemphasize one more time that, you know, we're talking about a project that might add 10 trips a day to a road that has 150 to 200 cars on it. One more piece. Roads throughout the rural communities are never constructed to provide pedestrian access. There are no pedestrian facilities there. There are no shoulders. There are no safe pedestrian facilities. That wasn't part of the vision of creating the road. And we all take the risk when we want to walk on a rural road. We are aware and we listen for cars and we make sure we get out of the way because we know who wins in that collision. And so just when it comes to that, that's a personal choice to go out on a private rural road that does not have facilities. Thank you very much. Angie, I don't know if you have a couple more points.
Angie Dodd with North Point Consulting. I just want to conclude. I think I'm going to be pretty brief. I just want to acknowledge that I respect the concerns of the community. Praj and I both live in rural communities. I jog on a similar road multiple times a week, so I'm definitely understanding of the concerns and the comments. We focus on the urban-rural interface. It sounds like the majority of the issues are with the county road itself, which we've demonstrated that the project really isn't going to significantly impact. Facts have been provided by the applicant and the county that support a fair argument that this project does not have significant impacts. We've demonstrated with monitoring and reporting, the monitoring and reporting program in CEQA, the conditions of approval, that there will be no significant impacts. Praj already pointed out about the traffic. I want to stress these applicants are outstanding citizens. They know the community. They have owned and maintained the property for over 50 years. They work closely with CAL FIRE and the sheriff. And I'm not going to say that. I'm trying to paraphrase and get through this. This family and this farm and this project is not part of the problem. I would like you to please consider the facts that have been provided, the hard work that has been done, and accept the recommendation from your planning department staff to approve this project. Thank you. Oh, and there was a question. Did you want me to answer the question about the in ground or in pots? So it's both. So it's just depending on how and where it's cultivating. I think we put the opportunity for both in there. Is that what you said? So I'll answer that. So it's mostly, it looks like in pots. So I just wanted to talk about the type of cultivation that would occur. I think that was all the comments, and we're here if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, bringing it back to the commission for further discussion. I know that there's some discussion to go over regarding the roads, so take it away.
I guess I'll start. Clearly, we have a huge problem here with the roads. The question that I have in front of me is it fair to an individual project to stop it because it is one of the many projects that is increasing traffic on the road? And I don't think that's fair. I think that we need to, as a county, address the road issue. Can we halt and this is a question I'm addressing to the other commissioners and the community as a whole. Can we halt development until the roads are ready? So that's one issue. Why don't we discuss that, and then we can get back to, I only have one or two other issues.
Commissioners, do you guys have any comment regarding to Commissioner
Well,
Fields?
but I have a similar concern. I mean, we have a potential of 6 projects if they all, 3 are existing, no, 2 are existing, this one, and 3 others in this one area. But what is the, well, what is the future thought on each one will, continue to add? And I know that you can't project, but to the question.
Do you have more?
No, I was interested, to take a ride on her question. That's a wonderment. What do we do here?
So it's discussing, I would love to use the County Public Works here in this meeting as well, to give us some input, if nothing else. I mean, I understand as far as on the county level, we do have, and well put, Commissioner Field, can we halt development until the roads are ready, and when are the roads going to be ready? But there are different things that we can do, I think, in this particular area, which I would like to see into this project is because of that, because of this particular project and potential future projects, as well as past projects. Because again, I mean, when there was just one project up and over that hillside, the road wasn't an issue. But as it increases and multiplies, and there are several projects, signage is a big issue. Are there improvements such as lines on the roads that can be made, that can be included moving forward, that would help with the safety of the road in that area until we can get in and completely redo the road?
So the question is, what's the threshold?
Well, and beyond that, I think that if there's a sign there that says that the truck length is limited to 28 or 30 feet, then we need to enforce that. I'm not quite sure how long those semis were that were causing the huge problems, but there's a huge problem here. So I'd like to see somebody who, at the county level, Public Works or Road Department, or whatever that department is, address this issue. Is that hairpin curve even, is it possible to remedy that situation? I can't continue to approve these projects until we have some answers to that, I think.
Yes, and so I would say publicly also that, I know that the Board of Supervisors sometimes is a little bit frustrated when, of course, we deny or approve projects at this level, and then they get kicked up to the Board of Supervisors on appeal. And so they're constantly rehearing projects. But on the other hand, because we don't set policy, because we don't have control over those issues, there's a piece of me that just wants to deny the project, to push it up to the Board of Supervisors to deal with the road issue. So I'm just going to say that out loud.
Yeah, just a comment about just the entire hearing in general. This isn't the first project that has came up to us. I've driven this road in the past for a different project, and I couldn't imagine getting stuck behind a truck on my way home, like after a long day, and having to wait, I don't know, hours to have that truck cleared up, regardless if it's not for this specific project. I know the limitations of the vehicles that you guys will be using wouldn't exceed or cause any incident, but it's already happening. It's already an issue. So it would just, there will be an increase in traffic. There will be an increase in, even if it's a box truck that won't get stuck. I mean, trucks, how many years has Brassfield been operating up there? and the driver still gets stuck to this day. Like, there was a video that was shared to us that showed a truck that was stuck. I don't know, forget the date of that video. I'm guessing it was recent, pretty recent. Okay. Okay, yeah, thank you for the comment, but public comment is closed. So yeah, there's just the existing issues as it is. I mean, the project itself, it's not a bad project. All of these projects go through extensive planning, and the property owners have to think about how they're gonna structure their project, and it just comes down to, in this specific area of the road, and it's been an issue for previous projects, so it's kind of hard to, like Commissioner Fields said, how do we approve a project when we know that there's issues on the road, and even though it is county's jurisdiction, we're just adding more volume up that road. So,
Chair Chavez, if I may add a little bit, the Public Works Director is going to present an updated road management plan, 5-year plan, to the board within the next couple of weeks or sometime in June. So conditions of roads is an ongoing concern, and is always in front of the Board of Supervisors regarding how to most effectively allocate the existing funding to maintain and repair roads. I don't think that the Planning Commission denying this project as a way to send a message to the board would be news to them. So, thanks.
So it puts us in a position where, so we say, okay, these guys are okay. These other 3 that are coming up, we draw a line and say, nope, no more till the roads are fixed. It puts us in a catch-22 back to the question of the chicken or the egg here.
And we
So,
make decisions based on health and safety.
Just as a reminder, Commissioners, under CEQA, which is what it sounds like you're considering, is your decision for CEQA and impacts. CEQA does require the consideration of cumulative impacts, which is why staff provides the information on upcoming and already approved projects. Your role here is to consider the project location and environment as it exists right now. So whatever we may wish the road conditions to be, whatever we may wish any changes to be in the future or in an ideal, what you are considering now is the project location and the environment of the project as it exists right now, and the impacts to the project location as it exists right now. So what you would be considering is the condition of the roads today and the impact of the proposed project on those roads as they exist now. So if if there is substantial evidence in the record, as staff has proposed, that you are able to find that that any potential impacts that have been identified are mitigated to less than significant by the mitigations in the conditions of approval, then you may make that finding that it's been mitigated and the project can move forward. If in relation to anything that you find that there is not substantial evidence in the record to show that that mitigation has occurred, then you can deny the project. You also have the option, if you feel that there may be an appropriate mitigation, to amend the mitigations so that you can propose certain changes to the conditions of the permit, so that in your assessment, the project would then be mitigated sufficiently in order to allow for the project to be approved. And if you are not, if you're finding that there is not sufficient evidence in the record to make a decision either way, you may identify those deficiencies and direct staff to provide that information and those facts at a future date that you can identify.
And if I could add to that, within the agency comments, there are 2 submissions from Public Works regarding the roads and requiring no further improvements. One from the roads engineer, or this associate civil engineer, and one from the project manager. So 2 comments from agency comments from Public Works regarding this specific project.
Yeah, I think the difficult part is how do we enforce the size of trucks that are going in and out? You know, passenger vehicles are okay. That doesn't seem to cause too much of a problem. But we really don't have like the power to just stand there and stop the trucks before they go in. You know, like you know, that's not our job today. The project as it is, I don't have a problem with the project, but it's kind of how we were discussing the cumulative impact of how many more projects, when do we draw the line? So just because of the road conditions, to bring another project up there, I would vote to deny on the project. But you know, whatever the commission would like to move forward.
Well, I have other questions about the project.
Before we move on, I just want to answer one thing that Commissioner Chavez brought up. I am satisfied with Angie Dowd's comment that no truck would be longer than 28 feet. That satisfies my concerns for this specific project. I think your typical semi-truck is twice that length, ones we saw in the video. I haven't been there. I'm not a traffic engineer or anything, but my experience in agriculture and trucks and everything, that size of truck is probably going to make it. So for this particular project, I'm satisfied with her comment. I believe somebody wants.
Public input is closed.
I was wondering if in the trying to look through, and maybe this is a question for our Director of Community Development here, in our mitigation measures, is there a mention about vehicle size or truck or?
No.
That we do not have a nexus to require
Okay, got it.
a maximum truck size.
Mhm.
But we do also hold the permittee accountable to maintaining compliance with the project description.
Okay. Perfect.
If it's noted on the road that there's a length, that should,
That is enforced through other means.
yeah.
I think it was described as it was a suggestion.
Oh,
It was a
Oh,
sign that
it's not by
suggests-
ordinance? Okay.
Right.
The sign that if I could interrupt real quick, the sign on Google Maps says tractor semis over 25 feet, kingpin to rear axle not advised.
Okay.
That's
So it's an advisory, not a prohibition.
So regardless of what happens here today, I would encourage everybody who commented and is concerned about this project's impact on roads to direct those concerns to the Board of Supervisors at the time that's appropriate. I think Director Turner mentioned that it's up for discussion soon.
The presentation of the updated roads management plan will be in a future agenda.
Yeah, I just don't feel that it's fair to punish one little applicant because of a larger problem. Having said that, I'm really torn because, seriously, you can't have a school with kids crossing the road in this kind of traffic. That's not acceptable. So I'm very concerned.
Okay.
Did you have more questions?
So, yeah, I have some questions. In regard to the hydrology and water report, and this is just a minor, I hope this is just a minor thing. Between the staff report and the project description, the project speaks of just one well on site, and the staff report refers to, speaks of wells, perhaps implying multiple wells. The mitigation measurements requires, anyway, so I just want a clarification on that, whether that was just something that was normal in the staff report, as far as the language, the verbiage, that you just speak of, if there's multiple wells, they all have to comply to this, this, and this. I just want to, clearly identify on this particular project, there was one well, and not multiple wells. Page 15 of the staff report.
While they're looking that up, I just want to comment that I did the math on the water, and the 40 gallons per minute crunches out just barely with the acreage we're talking about, the canopy.
Yet the hydrology report notes that there's one existing groundwater well that would be used by the project.
So there's one that was specifically drilled for the project and one existing.
No, there's only one.
There's just one.
There's only one well on the property.
Yeah.
That's it.
An existing feature.
I'm just looking for clarification for myself and, in the way the report is presented and how I should be interpreting that. And then the other question that I had in regard to, and somewhere I couldn't find it in the report, but in regard to the cabin, the hunting cabin, because it seems like on this property also that there's no residents on the property, is that correct? Wait, the public comment is closed right now, so I am talking to staff and getting clarification on this from staff. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Max Stockton here. Yes, the hunting cabin is the only residence. It's not really a residence. It's just the only thing that could be structure with rooms that could be occupied on this property at this time. There's no other residents at this time, and that is very old. 60s? I think it's dating back quite some time.
Right. And there was a septic system also that was out of commission that went, I believe, with that cabin. And so, again, just looking for clarification, that would be removed, or what happens?
That would be an environmental health call, but yes, according to our analysis, the new septic system and leach field would be repaired after the damage from the Mendocino Complex fire. Accordingly.
Okay. So, and then the other question that I had, or I wanted more information on, is the whole solar system and the electricity that supplies and the backup generator, and how much time, given, I guess I would like further information on this in regard to the solar, how much is that generator going to be used? When the solar's not performing adequately.
I know there are specific requirements related to the use of generators. I can't speak for the applicant at this point, but that would be used until, for emergency only, once operational.
But when a project relies strictly on solar, what is emergency?
Yeah, so as far as how much solar, that's going to be determined once the project is approved on what they need. Are they running lights? Are they running security cameras? Are they running humidifier? What are they running is going to depend on how much solar they actually need for this project. And typically what we find is that should the electrical system fail, which happens, then the emergency generator would be in place for emergency purposes until that is able to be restored. And County Council has something to say.
So, under the ordinance, Article 27, I think? Yeah, Article 27, there is a provision that allows for emergency generator use, and an emergency is defined as a condition that is outside of the permittee's control. So if it's something that they would have otherwise been able to prevent or otherwise caused on their own, then a generator would not be usable. It would have to be something like probably a PSPS or a fire or an earthquake or something along those lines. And then there are also criteria, should there be an emergency that qualifies and a generator or generators are used, then that particular section of the ordinance requires that they go through steps following to notify the county that that had occurred, and there are things, there's information they have to provide to CDD and in those circumstances.
First, there's another permit for the solar installation, is that not correct?
That would be a building permit, correct? And to clarify a bit more, I have the operation details in front of me now. The solar system's proposed to be 5.5 kilowatts and is anticipated to power the cultivation area, since it would be outdoor with no lights or fans for flowering. There would be minimal power needs. So it's anticipated that that would power the whole operation.
Okay, thank you. And then,
So we're approving the concept, not the permit.
correct.
Correct,
just wanna make
just
sure
like
of that, yeah.
the building permits or other.
Right.
So, and then my final question is I also read through this, in reading through this material, that there is a really robust security measures put in place for this project. But I also want to make sure that those security measures allow for county staff to have adequate access to the site as needed, in complying with the permit requirements.
Allowing access is one of our standard conditions.
That's all I have for now.
Are there any more questions, or are you guys ready to take action on the project?
I see the applicant has his hand up. Again, did we want to allow her to just move forward?
Do you guys have any questions for the applicants?
I don't have any more.
Because public comment has been
Yeah.
closed, so. Unless if you guys are in consensus with wanting to let me open public input, but we would have to allow everybody a chance to.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm sorry.
This is one of the most difficult decisions I've faced as a planning commissioner. I think I'm ready to approve it, but I've got to just say publicly that this is the last time. We need to address the road issue as a county. So I'm not quite sure what that means, how that would happen, but this is a very, very difficult decision. I don't think it's fair to take out this huge problem on a couple of people. So that's it. That's all I have.
Is there a caveat that we can add to the approval, not burden the applicant, but somehow address that this is a serious issue, certainly considering there's a potential of 3 other projects that'll come before us?
I can
Well-
attest that I periodically do get communications from the supervisors because they watch these meetings. So I think that your message will come through very clearly.
Yes, and that's what I think, just having this conversation and going on record about our concern and the difficulty with that we are facing moving forward with approving projects, approving any type of development here in this county, and the struggles that we're having.
It puts us in a very difficult position as commissioners. When a child gets hit, how am I going to feel?
So if we move to approval, can we somehow say that we are, other than just having the conversation, that we are very concerned moving forward on any other projects? And not just this one, there are others that we've seen that have had issues with roads.
Commissioners, your body is not a policy-making body. So you cannot make predeterminations based on based on a sort of a policy term or concern, and you can't predetermine projects. So while you're maybe aware that there are other projects that potentially may come up in this area, when they come to you, you will consider them as you do every other project, and you will consider them in the environment in which they are in at that time. So if at that time you have reached the point where the facts and circumstances that are presented to you in the record have convinced you that you cannot make a finding in relation to that particular project because of the environment as it exists in that time. Say, for example, there are 4 other projects on that road that have increased traffic to an X amount, and you find that, and you are unable to find that's mitigated, then that would be a decision you make at that time when the project is in front of you. So you couldn't make, this body cannot make decisions that are sort of global. It has to be project by project.
All right.
Thank you. All right.
So I'm looking for a motion.
Okay. I am going to move and make the motion. I move that the Planning Commission find that potential impacts associated with this project can be mitigated to less than significant through the implementation of the Mitigated Negative Declaration IS 23-20 submitted by Rusty and Bobby Bartell for the property located at 10535 High Valley Road, Clear Lake Oaks, APNs 006-004-22, will not have a significant effect on the environment, and that the Planning Commission adopt initial study IS 23-20 with the findings listed in the staff report dated May 22nd, 2025.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Nay. Motion passes.
Okay, and regarding major use permit PL-25-68 for UP 23-09, I move that the Planning Commission find that the major use permit PL-25-68 for UP 23-09 applied for by Rusty and Bobby Bartell on property located at 10535 High Valley Road, Clear Lake Oaks, APNs 006-004-22 does meet the requirements of Section 5.1.4 and Article 27 of the Lake County Zoning Ordinance, and that the major use permit be granted based on the findings and the subject to the conditions included in the staff report dated May 22nd, 2025.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. And the motion passes. Note, the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7 calendar day appeal period. If there is a disagreement with the Planning Commission, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms of applicable fee must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th day following the Planning Commission's decision on this matter. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll give it a minute for people to exit the room before we move on to our non-timed items. All right, I believe the room has been emptied. I was just trying to make sure we didn't have a lot of conversations going on while we finish the meeting. So we are moving on to our non-timed items. Seeing as there's none, moving down to department update.
Thank you. I have 2 items. We recently lost our brand new plans examiner. He's a youngster, and I think he found a better paying job. So we had a vacancy in the department for maybe a week and a half, and we now have a new plans examiner. It's our former business services analyst, Phil Hansen, who has been testing and getting certified and has been just jumped right into the job. So we're very happy to keep one employee in this new position. I have great confidence he'll do a great job. And now we just need to fill. Well, we're thinking we may pivot and not immediately fill that business services analyst position. He had been working a lot on our last permitting system, the Acela, which I can't use my nickname for it in public session. But we have switched over now to a new electronic permitting system, which is not nearly as correction intensive. And so we're really excited for this new system. I think that it'll definitely improve efficiencies within the department as well as improve public access to information from outside the department. And then secondly, just a Lake County 2050 general plan update. We are currently in administrative review for the countywide elements, and I want to express thanks to all the different department heads that are taking a look at all these elements and sending back their comments, as well as to internal planning staff and our staff services analysts for collecting all of those department comments and synthesizing it into an updated draft. Next, we will send that back to our writing team, and we will start the admin or internal review of the local area plan elements. We may have a summer meeting of LAPAC and GPAC, but not for Lake County 2050 documents, but rather for the climate adaptation plan. That's kind of getting tossed around right now. We've got these handy dandy groups of people already appointed by the board to talk about these elements, and so we may take advantage of that and get input on or do our community outreach, sort of leveraging our LAPACs and GPACs. It also might result in me doing a circuit of all of our municipal advisory councils, which is always fun. So public outreach is always fun. I love it. Before the end of the year, when we go into public review of all of the Lake County 2050 draft documents, we are going to complete a tribal administrative review. So the tribes are going to get their chance to review all of those Lake County documents and provide their input as well prior to going out for public review. So that's kind of our broad timeline extending between now and towards the end of the year. We do still anticipate the public review period opening up around the end of the year, and that's when we're going to start our multiple LAPACs and GPAC meetings at that time again. Yes.
By end of the year, do you mean fiscal year or
calendar? Thank you. 2025, year 2 of our project, is when we're working on all of these draft documents, as well as the EIR is getting drafted as well. And we're still working on the timeline that 2026 is when all of these documents are going not just for public review, but also for the coming before your body and then the Board of Supervisors. As well as, don't forget, the ag element is going before the agriculture committee, agricultural review committee. That's not the right name. Thank you. Ag Advisory Committee. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much for staff for the department update. We adjourn the meeting at 12:26. They took the gavel.